Ms. Munoz, would you please introduce yourself?
Good evening. Hello. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rosa Munoz. I'm the translator for the district. I'm here for any comments or questions you may have. Buenas noches a todos. Soy Rosa Muñoz, la traductora del distrito. Estoy aquí para cualquier comentario o pregunta que deseen hacer. Gracias.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, bienvenidos to everyone here and watching the live stream at home to the July 19th special meeting of the Dover Board of Education. This meeting, which is hereby called to order at 5:35 p.m., is in compliance with the notice requirements of the law. Public notice was originally posted in the office of the Board of Education and communicated to the municipal court, the Daily Record, on July 6, 2022. Could we please rise for the flag salute? Is anybody wearing a pin? Yeah. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Slam, would you please do a roll call?
Ms. Grisales,
Present.
Ms. Mendez,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Ms. Nutting,
Here.
Ms. Phillips,
Here.
Mr. Robles,
Present.
Ms. Ruiz, Ms. Viveros,
Present.
Dr. Senor.
Present. Thank
We have a
you.
quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Slam. Ms. Viveros, will you please read our mission statement?
Working together as a community, our mission is to welcome all and provide opportunities for our students in a safe and accepting learning environment to become creative, empathetic, resilient, and who choose to make an impact.
Thank you very much. Our first item of business is to review and discuss our board self-evaluation, and I would like to invite Ms. Charlene Peterson, who is our field representative from the New Jersey School Board Association, to the floor. And I think there's a microphone coming for you.
And Dr. Senor, I just want to note the microphones tonight are not amplified, but they are helpful for the live stream.
Is there a particular place I need to stand, or is right here fine? Or
Oh, geez. It's your big moment.
that's fine. Is that what you're telling me? Okay. Just wanted to thank the board for the opportunity to be here today, but really more importantly to do this work of the board self-evaluation. You know, it used to be, I think it's about 8 or 10 years now that it used to be required by CUSAC, you know, the state's monitoring system, and then the state dropped that requirement as that relaxed some. So now boards that continue to do this, do it because it's a good governance practice, that if you hold the rest of the district accountable, this is your way then of holding yourselves accountable and taking that step back and reflecting on the work that you have done in the past year. And it's become really important for boards to kind of continue with this foundational work. As you know, I've been working with many boards, and you know, not only have districts had challenges with COVID and the post effects, but boards have also had difficult years, in finding that those boards that have continued to do these foundational steps, like having goal setting meetings and retreats like you're doing today, doing the board self-evaluation, engaging in board training, both as a board and as individuals. Those are all things that help make a difference in making you a stronger board and kind of creating more of a strong foundation, so that you know you're doing this not only for you but really for future boards, because you've kind of are setting the stage of how the Dover board does things, so that you know we're creating a culture. I also wanted to acknowledge, you know, at the last Morris County School Board Association, that 2 of your members, as we talk about the importance of training, were recognized for individual certifications. So that was Mr. Miller was recognized for becoming a certified board member, and Ms. Vieros was recognized for being earning new board member certification. So just wanted to acknowledge that it's, you know, the board is not only taking the time to train together as a board, but also availing themselves as, you know, training opportunities available to you as individuals, and, you know, feel that that really does help make you a stronger board. So In looking at the board self-evaluation, I'm just going to put this down for a minute. Just wanted to, talk a little bit about it for those of you that are watching us and perhaps not here, recognizing that each board member fills this out individually, and then New Jersey School Boards compiles it into one anonymous document, and the board looks at 9 different areas or 9 different standards, and they're asked to evaluate 2 sections about the board and then about you as the board member. And the evaluation is based on a 4.0 scale. So we really look and focus on how the board, kind of the board's work and how the board evaluated itself. So if I looked over the 9 different areas, the average board score that your board gave itself was a 3.1. And that's fairly, that's consistent with where the board was last year. Last year, the board's overall average was 3.2. In looking at areas where the board evaluated itself the highest, that was a 3.5 in board and superintendent relations. And the area that the board evaluated itself the lowest was 2.8, and that was in student achievement. And I don't think it's a reflection of student achievement itself, but I think the board holding itself accountable to monitoring and data and kind of the board's work in that area. One of the things also too, is that the board really took this board self-evaluation and really kind of dug in deep. I was just at a board not that long ago, and one board member said how she really took time and made thoughtful comments and said, I just didn't want to put fluff stuff in here. I really wanted this to be meaningful. And I feel like all 9 of you did that. That when I was looking at this board self-evaluation, I was really asking myself, how could I even do an overview of it, because there is just so much stuff in here. So I would, kind of challenge or even ask the question after we're done going through this, if the board would even be open to considering having a meeting just to talk about this and kind of digging in deeper to some of the things that the board put in here, because I just feel like there's so many nuggets and there's just so many things in here that really could be explored further, that I would really welcome the opportunity to do that with the board if that's something that the board would find to be of help to the board in its work. So just wanted to put that out there for you. See how I can manage turning the page, holding the microphone, right? Yeah. The first page here was just looking at what you value as a board, and one of the things, or the most important thing we look at from New Jersey School Board's perspective, is to see how we rated student achievement. So recognizing that from your board's perspective, in terms of what you value, what is most important, the board evaluated that a 4.0, which is all of you saying that it was vital and the most important thing. So we know then that your focus and your priorities are in the right place. As we go through the 9 different areas and look at the board self-evaluation itself, so the first section that the board looked at was planning. So this was an area that the board evaluated itself, like an overall score of 3.1. And when we look at planning, we looked at it, I guess, from a couple different perspectives of, do we have an understanding of what our community's aspirations are? And I know it was mentioned that when we did the work of looking at the mission statement and the vision statement, that we certainly took a, broad community input into the process, but, feel that it continues to, we want to continue to have that voice. And so from a board's perspective, we're always asking ourselves the question, how can we continue to do that? How can we continue to get more voices, to get a clear understanding of what our community wants? So I think that came out here, and then talked about, saying how can we provide more opportunities. Also looked at kind of saying, recognizing that we didn't really get a lot of data from the state this year, that really has impacted our work and our ability to monitor the progress of our goals, but recognizing that is a responsibility for us as a board. And then there was also mention of a process that you have put in that I was interested to learn more about tracking your own board goals and kind of how you are doing that. So if someone would share what you're doing there, I would love to hear that. So.
We have a shared document, and whoever reads we started this maybe 6 months ago, I'm not sure, not long enough, but we have a system now where whoever reads the mission statement would be in charge at that meeting of documenting areas of anything that is expressed by any board member that that shows progress on a board goal. They would document that in that spreadsheet, which is available to all of us.
Wonderful. So, and then that's part of what we recognize as our work is, not only to set these goals, but to make sure that it really is driving the work that we do and that we're all understanding what kind of progress we're making and sharing that progress, with our staff and community. So I've not heard of any board doing it that way, so that's great. I'm learning something new today, so yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. Then the next section was looking at policy. So when we look at policy, we look at it from a couple different ways of saying not only the policy work that we do in terms of improving and updating the policy documents, but also our role as a policy-making body. And do we understand that difference between what we do as a policy-making body and then what the administration does in running the district and making sure then that we are clear about that separation. So both of those are kind of folded in together with policy. I think it was mentioned in here that your board, that policy seems to be an area of strength, right, for your board, and it seems like just even based on the questions I know that I get and that our policy department gets from you, I know that you guys really dig in, roll up your sleeves, and really, don't take your policy work lightly, right? That you do a lot of work on it. And make sure that it's reviewed by your administration, by your attorney, that it's making sure that you are putting the best policies forward. The board mentioned that, that you do work well together, you do understand that role. And somebody did mention that it might be helpful to have more of an understanding of CUSEC. So again, that's another one of those areas where we could, have some more expanded conversation on this. So I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on policy before we move on to student achievement. Okay. So student achievement, like I said, was that area then that the board evaluated itself the lowest, and there with a 2.8 is the overall score. And then even two of the indicators, if you look at number 3 and number 5 of the indicators, requires systematic evaluation and feedback on the program and monitors the effectiveness, that the board, you can see in both of those indicators, evaluated itself as a 2.3, and those are the two lowest indicators that the board gave itself in the board self-evaluation. So again, those would be areas that we should be revisiting and looking at. And again, if we, kind of look at, some of the comments that help support these ratings, I think that the board, again, really made it clear that student achievement is your #1 priority, that is the focus of the work that you do. But it was mentioned that we could continue to talk about or learn about how we can do more to understand what our community's aspirations are for our students. Again, that data and metrics of saying, recognizing we didn't get data from the state or as much as we would like. Someone mentioned that you are using iReady now, right, as a way to get more data, but continue to talk about not only data, but what, what are you measuring? What information do you need to give you the outcomes that you want? So those were all things that were mentioned, and someone even, asked, from the board's perspective, are we asking the right questions? Are we, holding the level of accountability that we should be holding in our roles? Because we have to play an important part in student achievement as well to make sure that, our students are getting everything they deserve. So just kind of, again, food for thought for the board to explore deeper. The next section, unless anyone else has anything they want to add about student achievement, was looking at finance. So here, the board, talked about, again, there was a couple areas, when I look at the board self-evaluation and look at the kind of the ratings, I feel like sometimes people have said, well, commendable or good or adequate, those things could mean different things to different people. But, sometimes when But when someone says something is unsatisfactory to them, that's typically pretty clear, right? So there were a couple areas here where that was the feeling of one board member, and a couple of the indicators. I think the board talked about how helpful it was, the training that you did receive on finance, and feel that that's something that you would like to do more of. So, I think that from the board's perspective, you recognize, how important your role is in finance, in balancing, and it really is a difficult balance of making sure that we can give our students the best education that we possibly can at a price that our community can afford. And what does that balance look like? And what kind of work do we need to do to achieve that balance in the best, in what's in the best interest of your community? So again, making sure that we all have a level of understanding. And even for people who are, finance people will say that, school district finance is not intuitive to most people to understand that. So the more training you can do and the more that you can help your members feel that they do have that clear understanding is only to the board and the community's benefit.
Ms. Peterson, while you're turning the page, I think this is a really good opportunity to just acknowledge Mr. Slam, our business administrator. Board members expressed a need for more board-specific financial training. And I just want to acknowledge that I don't want to just acknowledge, I also want to thank Mr. Slam for providing that training. He held at least 2 sessions that I know most of the board has attended, and the couple board members that were not able to attend, he's, trying to make a connection with them to make sure that that's happening. And so I think that speaks both to the board's desire for that training, but the business administrator for really delivering a very high quality, helpful training in how we can better do our jobs. Thank you, Mr. Slam.
And Dr. Sainer.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Ruiz.
While we have a moment, I have a question on the student finance and the student achievement and finance piece together. So because that was our lowest rating, the student achievement, and we should be then focusing on that. And I think what I'm reading from the comments is that, one, there may have been a lack of data because of the pandemic, right? State and state testing that normally is done wasn't done, or state reports that normally are provided weren't provided. And even above and beyond that maybe we're either not asking the questions we need to ask, maybe we don't know to ask them. I'll speak for myself. Curriculum is still something I'm learning about. I'm not an educator. So oftentimes I'm wondering if I just don't know curriculum well enough to ask the right questions, or so either we don't know the questions to ask, or maybe we do and aren't asking, or maybe we're new and are still learning. There may be many reasons. So in order to address that need while we still learn, because we are a relatively new board, I'm wondering if there is a possibility to have an internal comparison. And what I mean by internal comparison is picking 3 factors: graduation, number of students with perfect attendance, number of students with straight A's, just to pick 3 like very common traditional factors. But of course, you can measure success in many, 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 many other ways. But you pick 3 factors. What does that look like in 2022? What did it look like 5 years ago? What did it look like 10 years ago? And how has our district as a whole changed? Is our attendance better or worse? Is our graduation rate better or worse? Or the same, right? And then a regional comparison. What do we look like in 2022 as compared to our neighbors in Randolph and Wharton? Actually, not. I'm thinking of just the high school. So Randolph and Rockaway, let's say Roxbury, and it's the district factor group, right? Those letters, right? So and how do we compare on a district factor group? That I know where to get, because I've seen the district factor group comparison. How are we compared to Union City, which is a school district with which we share a district factor group? Does that exist somewhere already? I know there's like the state website has the report card, but where can we either find or look to develop some of this information so that we can see progress in a clearer way?
So, I mean, I think some of it is what you said initially, is that because there have not been consistent tests and changes in state tests where we used to have more comparative data, I guess maybe your administration can help address what data is out there for us to look at. I mean, the state even kind of took away looking at the district factor groups, and now they have just say districts that you're aligned with, and not necessarily and they'll make a listing of the districts, it could be district, but they don't really call it that anymore. So I think the first, kind of the first step is kind of saying, well, what are the what's the end result? What is it that you are looking for to work on, to have as goals, to move forward? And then what data do you need to help you know whether you're moving in that direction or not? And then decide, and so it's, I think you've got, and then decide then who you want to compare and what you need to compare against. But first deciding kind of what are those outcomes that you're looking for, and then what data do you need to determine that? Because like you said, there are so many different things to look at. Districts can look at, discipline rates, attendance rates, graduation rates. There's just so many different things. So it depends really what you want to focus on and what information, where you need to go based on the needs of your students. So I think really that's kind of where we need to start first.
And is that an administration task? Is that the board saying to our administration, we all vote in favor of the administration presenting a graduation rate for the past 10 years? Or is that something that exists somewhere online and we all just need to learn how to find it?
So some of it will kind of be working together. Like some of it will be like, what is the goal, or what is it that the board is being asked to approve or to exercise oversight of, and then do we have the information we need to do that? And if we don't, then what information is that we need? So we might be, the board has a role in setting the goals, help setting the what, but not necessarily then how we're going to get there. But the board, so perhaps based on that how, that may identify kind of what data you might need, or, to work together with, the administration to determine what that looks like. So you need to make sure you have the information you need to cast an informed vote, to know if you're making the progress you were hoping to make in these goals. So it's kind of a joint effort of the board being involved in setting what the direction is, needing the administration to tell you how they're going to accomplish that, what are ways to measure that, you deciding if those are ways then that can allow you as the board to make an informed decision that you're making the progress you had hoped to make, and then work together to make adjustments and move the district forward. So.
Thank you, Ms. Ruiz, for your question. I also wanted to tell the board that there is a presentation on graduation rates coming. That has been on the schedule. So Dr. McLaughlin, I'm forgetting if it's August or September. So that's already on the calendar. So, but I think Ms. Ruiz asked a lot of good questions about how we decide what we need and how we get that. So I think as we think about planning board goals, perhaps that could be in the back of your mind.
Yep, those are good conversations to have. The next piece of it then was looking at board operations, and so how the board does its work. So not only looking, at kind of your work you do at your meetings, but then also your governance structure, which is your committee. So, one of the things that I always look at is number 2 of saying, do you provide a climate that allows for free, open, and orderly discussion by all? Because to me, this is where you do your work, is at this meeting. Everybody should, feeling that they, can say what they want to say, what they need to say. And so, we can see in this case that, 2 members said that that they felt that the board was unsatisfactory in their work in this area. So I just, again, as we look at to me, this is a place, again, to take a deeper dive as we look at our work and make sure that because we only have a couple opportunities a month to come together as a board in public to do our work in public, it's important that we all are contributing to that work in a way that we feel that we've been heard and we're able to make meaningful contributions. So the other thing too, as the board also looked at and examined its committee structure, I think there were comments that would suggest that you feel that this structure is more efficient and effective than however you were operating in the past, but it sounds like there are still perhaps some terms of communication and just ways to kind of work out, to continue to work on it. I don't know if anyone else has thoughts about the board's work and the way that, the board's structure as a committee, if there's thoughts that...
There,
Mr. Miller?
I have to remember that.
Thank you.
So, sometimes, and I know Robert's Rules of Order are meant to kind of keep things going, but in the past, there was always a conversation, and it was, sort of less formal, and people felt comfortable with that. So sometimes I think that I understand why we have it, because there could be times when other people don't observe, the proper way, to run the meeting. But sometimes when we're engaged in a conversation, instead of all of us being recognized, if we can engage in a conversation that could be helpful with dialogue going back and forth, instead of interrupting it all the time. If it's a new topic, then then to recognize the board president, that might be helpful at times. But I know the perception that we've heard from the public in different forums is that, and I know this is the issue with having a committee system, sometimes they don't feel that it's transparent enough, even though we are reporting the information that happens in the committee. So it's kind of a balance. And but if you went back to the committee of the whole, there's a lot of business that has to occur, but there's still some business that has to happen that can't be open to the public. So how do you balance all of that? And so I guess in your experience, most boards are the committee system?
Yes, they are. Especially 9-member boards, again, recognizing all of the work that you have to do. And I mean, I know of one board that, I don't know if it was last year, the year before, tried to go back to a board of a whole and just thought, maybe for transparency that might be the way for them to, and they only lasted 1 year and said, there's just too many things that come before you. There's just too much work. There's just too many deep dives that you have to do. So really that balance is kind of more of an understanding that, that committees can only make recommendations. So only the full board can take action. So while the public, sometimes there is a thought that maybe we need to see everything, really, the Open Public Meetings Act provides the public the right to know action that the board is going to take on their behalf. Mm-hmm. So if a committee can't take action, the public has to trust the fact that the action is happening here, and it has to happen at the board meeting. You have to have, dialogue, so the committee cannot be making decisions that are going to affect the public. The committee can only do the legwork to have recommendations be made so that the board can discuss it and have meaningful and informed conversations in the public.
And I guess the issue is, if you get new people coming, they've never been to a board member, they don't know that, so it's kind of hard. You can't explain it all the time. So I don't know what the answer is so that people understand this is a common practice on how to operate.
So it's just, so you said you do committee reports, right? And do you do them at the board meeting?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, it's just, and I remember that your district did a couple, maybe it's been about 3 or 4 years now, kind of that reaching out. You had some community members come here, and someone from New Jersey School Boards came and, helped them have an understanding of how the board does its work. You know, I don't know if many of you may not know, but so I was there then, and so they started out the training with an exercise of like about 3 or 4 different examples or situations that might be before a board, and they gave the community a buzzer and said, okay, which do you think is the right answer of how the board should do this, or what's the board's work? And they got everyone wrong. And just, so just kind of as a way to, you know, kind of help, you know, kind of, you know, goes to your point of we need to continue to educate the community on the work that we do. So it may be time to have that same session again and bring your community back, you know, back in again to just continue to do that training on the work that the board does and the way that the board does its work. So,
Dr. Sainer?
Ms. Ruiz.
One of our prior board goals was having a community forum, and the way that I understood the goal, and I don't have internet access, so I can't pull it up to read it, but one of the ways that I remember that board goal was that we were to have a community forum to do exactly that, to inform the public of how the board works, whether that's committees, whether that's Robert's Rules of Order, what, you know, the difference between regular session, executive session, the 9 topics that you are not going to get any information about because they're all executive session topics. And we did have a community forum, and it was very successful, and the public shared with us their concerns, but I don't think we shared with them, this is how the board works. And one of the things that we started to do, and I think we haven't done consistently perhaps, is that we had a form, and in my opinion, you don't have to have a form, but there should be a practice that each committee chair says when the last meeting was, when the next meeting will be, what was discussed, and what the recommendation is. We do that. What we don't do is, and I'm not saying we should, right? But, you know, board member X asked this, and board member Y asked that. But what we can do is say, let's say it's the policy chair talking about the 4 policies on the agenda. You know, we met on April 1st. We're going to meet again on June 2nd. We discussed policy 1, 2, 3, and 4. All the questions that the board members presented about these policies were answered and are part of the superintendent's report today, or a part of my summary of today. Or these are all mandatory and we made no changes, right? Something to let a little more of a summary of what was discussed. Because at least the way that I'm hearing the concern of the public is like, yeah, I get it. I see that you vote yes, but I have no idea what you discussed. You know, did you talk about the color of the blinds? Or did you just say, okay, new building, great, go, right? The public doesn't know that we sat there for 3 hours for an entire year, 3 hours at a time, several meetings over a year to discuss everything, including the color of the blinds. So, I don't know if it was voiced in here exactly that way, but I think that one thing we can do is have consistent and thorough committee chair reports, balancing that with the time of our meetings can take 3 hours if we're lucky. So I think that's at least what I feel is that balance of sharing as much information as we can, barring those 9 topics of executive session, using Robert's Rules of Order to keep the meeting going. I'm happy to debate all night any topic, as I'm still talking. But you do need to call the question. You need to move on, because if not, you'll be there for 6 hours. So I just wanted to share that maybe that's something that we can consider if we're going to keep the committee system, then to make the committee chair report a little more robust.
Dr. Sainer, if I may. The issue that I have as the chair of the curriculum committee is we are expected to be 100% engaged in the conversation and the information that's being presented to us, and then take thorough notes. So we need to find a balance in that somehow. Because that would be the only way for me to come back with a thorough report. Board member X said X, whatever was decided, is if there's someone else taking the notes, so that I can be focused on the agenda for that meeting.
Mr. Miller.
Which brings up another question. So if we open, the policy committee decides to open to the public, so do you have to take notes and report it again since it's open to the public? And so we still have the same issue.
I think so we're opening it to the public, but I think when we come together as a board as a whole, the report is for the board members. So I would assume that, yes, the chair of the policy committee is still gonna have to provide a report.
And I think Ms. Mendez just hit upon the point, right? And that this is our meeting conducted in the view of the public, but it is for us. And so how do we balance what we need to get at, right? For Ms. Mendez to vote yes or no on item 6 with I think our collective desire to be as transparent as possible for our community. And I think this is sticky. I don't think there's an easy, Ms. Ruiz came up with a suggestion. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Maybe our meetings are 9 hours long because, the minutes are, a committee chair may be reading kind of a script of what happened, and Ms. Mendez is not wrong. It is very difficult to be present, be an active participant in a discussion, and write notes to that level. So I don't think, I think it's an area that we have all, or many of us have expressed concern or desire for change. And, I'm keeping notes on, the thing, and I hope you are too, in terms of the things that our board most needs to focus on for next year. Mr. Miller.
So we already get reports that we review ahead of time, so we already know what happens in the committee. So it's really for the public that we're reporting it, not for us.
And I cannot verify that every board member has read.
Well, I'm just saying.
But they are available to every board member prior to the committee of the whole.
Yes.
I agree, but of course.
I just want to just briefly touch on it's a very interesting question about the minutes of committee meetings. And I go to, sometimes several board meetings a week, and have been doing this for a very long time. And different boards have different levels of committee reporting. First of all, most boards use the committee system. Most boards use totally the committee system. Then there's some that are use it for some committees and keep a few of it. But there's all different levels. I mean, some boards, their committee minutes that they read to the public are relatively short and sweet. Others get very detailed and go on for a long time. But one thing I think is not something that it would really be a good idea or even possible is to try to do a verbatim transcript of what was happening at the committee for a variety of reasons. One, it's very difficult, and you should be engaged in thinking about what's happening. And two, it kind of defeats the purpose because, the whole purpose of having a committees meeting is then to talk about things and then just report back. So there's certainly, some boards give pretty detailed minutes, but they still are not verbatim transcripts of everything that happened in the conversation. It's just that there may be some discussion in the minutes about, we spent time talking about a couple of options regarding X and, the various different aspects of it, and ultimately we're recommending Y or whatever. So I again, you can put more detail in, absolutely, but once you get to the point of really trying to put too much detail in, you're kind of losing the whole advantage of having the committees.
I don't want to inhibit anyone's discussion on this, but I know Ms. Peterson has another appointment. She's doing another training after this. I have this written down, and I do think this is worth further discussion when we start to talk about goals. Is that okay with everyone if we table this particular topic for now, knowing that we will go back to it as a board together in a few minutes? Okay, thank you, Ms. Peterson.
Yeah, my pleasure. Okay, so the next section then, so we were just looking at board operations, now we're looking at board performance. And I think that for the most part, we talked about kind of really this already. The board indicated that it works well together. But, we talked before about still more work to be done and everyone feeling heard. So I think that that's something that we talked about earlier. So just kind of recognizing that, sometimes we're seeing kind of recurrent themes here. The next section then was board and superintendent relationships, and like I said, that was the board's highest area, with the board evaluating itself at a 3.5 in that area. And when we look at board superintendent relationships, you know, the things that, you know, most impact that relationship, you know, and it's a lot of the words that I saw here that you wrote as a board, is respect, you know, communication, honoring the chain of command, making sure that we all understand our roles. So those are all things that really impact, you know, and make for a successful board and superintendent relationship. And those are all the things that your board indicated are things that, you know, that you do. So the next section then was board and staff relationships. So if we think about,
Dr.
you know,
Sainer, sorry, Charlene,
Uh-huh.
if I may. Just wanted to, I know it's an outlier and only one rating in the superintendent relationship. I worry a little bit about anyone of my colleagues feeling that they were not, that they did not observe a comprehensive and fair annual evaluation of the superintendent. And I think that if I can, you know, address your attention to number 5, it's super important that each one of us feels and knows about this process because we did do it. And so that to me is a little scary to know that there's one, even just one, that feels that that was not observed. And I think if that person remembers that rating, I think it's important for that person to reach out to board leadership to make sure that they're aware of what that means. And similarly to number 7, I think that unsatisfactory in number 7, you know, it's a delicate point, I think, for that person to understand that dialogue.
Yep, that's a good point to make. Good.
And I absolutely would welcome that conversation, or conversations if they're two different people. Please reach out if you have suggestions or feel like the progress towards district goals is not happening and you have suggestions, or how you feel the CSA evaluation process might be improved, please.
Good. So the next section looks at board and staff relationships. And so if we say, you know, that we honor that chain of command and our communication goes through the superintendent, how do we have a relationship with the staff? And really the way that we do that is making sure, you know, that we have good personnel policies, that we, you know, provide for our staff's professional development, that we recognize our staff, you know, publicly at our board meetings and make sure that we are acknowledging the work that they do, and then also making sure that we are visible in school activities and, you know, kind of representing the school as well. So, you know, the other thing that was mentioned here is kind of the issue that many districts are facing, and that being staff retention right now, right? And acknowledging that that's, you know, an issue that the board acknowledged in this section as well, and just kind of, it looks like you know, that you're doing some work in that area and identified some, you know, concerns in that area. So then the last section was board and community. So here, you know, we've talked about the importance of you know, the board working together, you know, with the community, and thought it was great that some of you have acknowledged the work that you're doing and trying to become more of a community school, and the you know, in the school being more of like a hub of the community. And you talked about you know, the partnerships that you've been building, but again, to me, you know, this, for every board, I feel like this is an area that we just cannot ever stop working at, looking at ways to continue to communicate with our community, to engage our community, and, you know, figuring out how we hear their voice and knowing what's important to them. And so I think that that was acknowledged in here as well. Then the last section was a couple open-ended questions, you know, saying that if student achievement your highest priority, what are 3 major challenges you feel are facing the district? So just kind of looked at those areas where they were, you know, more than one person mentioned them. It would be talked about space, right, and kind of referendum and building space here that you have, looking at funding, looking at staffing, and looking at community participation. So all things that we've, that we've talked about. And then the last section of this was asking about any particular training needs that you might want as a board. So, again, mentioned kind of policy, looking at kind of getting back to basics, talked about finance, so really a kind of a little bit of everything of the basic work that a board does. Did anyone have any questions about the board self-evaluation or any further thoughts? Okay, so like I said, if it's found that you would like to have a deeper dive in it or to explore some of these areas, I'd be happy to come back and do that. The other thing that I was asked to do before I left you was to talk about, you mentioned that you're going to be doing goal setting. So talking about, what distinguishes, we talk about a couple, like 2 different types of goals, district goals and board goals, and kind of what distinguishes the 2 of them, so to kind of help define that. So when we talk about district goals, if we think about all of the things that need to happen in your school district and all of the things that that the superintendent is responsible for to make sure all of these things happen, from the board's perspective, if we needed to establish, together as a board and superintendent team, if we needed to establish some priorities, and let's say we could only pick 3 or 4 things that we think are so important to move the district forward for this year, that we are going to hold the superintendent accountable by putting them in his evaluation. So this is how we are then, as a board, being part of that conversation of what are those priorities, what are those 3 or 4 things that we think the district needs to focus on. Despite all the other things that are going on, if we really have to hone in, what are those things? So that's kind of the board's work of, helping us determine that what in establishing those district goals. Then it kind of then touches everyone in the district. So then the administration will develop the action plans to tell us how they're going to accomplish the what that we help determine. Then the district should be working in alignment. Then the work that we see in the goals in the buildings, in the classrooms, everyone should be working in alignment off of this foundation that we have helped be part of establishing. And then you should be getting feedback. The teachers should be providing feedback as to what's going on in the classroom to the administration, and then the superintendent would share that with the board. So in some respects, you have touched, everyone in the district has been impacted or touched by these goals. Separate from that, then, board goals are your work. What do you need to focus on? We have to make sure then that all the tasks to accomplish board goals are the work of the board. And sometimes I've had a superintendent say to me, the board sets goals, but then they expect me to do all the work. I'm like, no, that's not how this works. The board goal. The board goals are supposed to be the board's work, all the tasks to accomplish them, because there's more and more evidence that high-performing boards can make a positive impact on student achievement. So we've talked about, areas in governance that we, as a board have just talked about now as part of the board self-evaluation of things that we need to focus on, things we would like to, hone on a little bit more to make sure that we are doing our governance work as effectively as we can. And a lot of times, we may be looking at the district goals and saying, how can we work together with and be part of this? And maybe some of our goals in a way might be to help support some of the district goals, and what can we do to help that? But some of it may be looking at our committee structure, or things that we need to do that are specifically our work. But at the end of the day, it's what are the tasks, the tasks that are needed to accomplish these goals need to be the work of the board. So.
Dr. Sanger?
Yes.
Kind of bringing the conversations together of the board self-evaluation and the board goals, and I'm reflecting on prior goals and on the evaluation. I think community relations, or at least I have heard community relations be a consistent concern, not just this year. And I think certainly for me, the idea was if we are out in the community more, then we will understand our community better, understand what our community wants, be able to inform each other, right? It sounded like a great idea. one of the, at the time, and one of the Board of Self-Evaluation feedback is that, you know, that may not be the best use of our time. And thinking about board governance, and I'm thinking about that presentation about the different committees focused on governance, right? And there is so much to do. I was on the curriculum committee once, and, you know, my head would spin. And policy, my God, it takes so much time and work, and it's good work. I agree with, and it wasn't my comment, but I agree with the comment that now, having done it, having gone to the community meetings, which I love to go to, I don't know that it's the best use of our board members' time to be at the Dover Board of Aldermen meeting, the Mine Hill Board of Education meeting, the Victory Gardens Board of, or I guess council meeting, and the Connecting Dover meeting, all important meetings, all that. It's good to be there. But when our time is one volunteer time, I think we are all working adults, and this is our unpaid part-time job of at least 20 hours per week, there's only so much you can do. And when we have so much to do, right? I mean, like you said, some of these scores that I'm sure we all want to be a 4.0 or a 2.8. So we've got a lot of work to do. I would agree that maybe that is something to visit again in this, and what you're flagging, Dr. Stainer, you know, how do we restructure the Community Relations Committee so that we are putting that time to best use for our school community? I don't know that we are doing that just yet. And it's been I think if it's any committee that's been like not fully finding its place for us, it's that committee. And I just didn't want to, you know, as we look to board goals,
Kind of lose that observation, right? Yeah.
how do we make that time, the little time that we have to do so much work that we need to do, and meeting that what for me is the biggest need is student achievement.
Mr. Miller.
So when we look at the board self-evaluation, which of course our board goals should be derived from that. I have the chart right in front of me, make sure I got it right. You know, the student achievement, we already know there's certain things that you could do with metrics, but we can't get the metrics. So how do we make that a board goal if we're not doing anything? We're just asking the superintendent to provide those metrics so that we have an idea. So how do we make that into a board goal versus a district goal?
So it may be looking at what part is the, you know, so the board will be part of, you know, helping determine the district goals. So you'll have that conversation about student achievement. So through that part of it, and then the monitoring and what information then do you need to, you know, to effectively to monitor the progress being made in that goal. So while you're not doing the work, you're not going to, you know, be able to impact what's, you know, like you say, that's the work of the administration, right? But you can help be part of the conversation of what's going to be our student, you know, student achievement should always be at least one of your district goals. So what is your student achievement goal going to be this year? So the board can be part of that conversation of helping, you know, like I said, kind of helping formulate what that's going to be. And then as we've talked about metrics and what metrics do we need, so then, you know, coming to making sure then from the board's perspective that, you know, I think the board was holding itself accountable of saying we need to make sure we're monitoring, we're doing the work that we need. So holding the board accountable to do its work in that process, and what information do you need to do that work.
So we're establishing what does student achievement look like and how we can set whatever analytics or whatever for us to monitor to see that we're progressing. I got it. Thank you.
Charlene, it sounds to me like you're saying that particular area falls into district goals and the board's, what the board looks for in the district goals. It's not a board goal.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm
Yep.
hearing you correctly.
Yep, you are
But
correct.
you were saying that we were, so wasn't sure if what you were saying was that by having the conversation was the board goal to help establish what it would be.
You can support, You know, you can make sure that is, let's say you set a district goal, say to look at reading, or, you know, something. Is the board giving the resources? Is the board giving the support? Is the board helping make sure the administration has what it needs to do that goal? You're not going to impact the outcome of it other than providing the support and providing the oversight. So the actual goal itself and the student achievement outcome will be the district goal. It's, like you say, your piece of it can just be, we're going to support the work of this. Or, so when I say sometimes district goals and board goals could be in alignment, you know, like we just said, you're not going to do the work to, you know, to foster student achievement, but you could do the work to make sure that you are giving the administration the support, the resources, whatever they need to accomplish that. So.
Ms. Ruiz.
I think I've seen in our materials that some boards have a student achievement committee. So if we took our community relations committee and gave it a break for a little while to address this student achievement need that we've identified as a board, what does a student achievement committee look like? What do they do? If we're not, right, we are not the how, we are the what. So, yeah. So what would a student achievement committee do if we decided to implement something like that?
So I think, you know, boards take the work that you do either in, you know, curriculum or, you know, instruction and assessment. So to me, boards just call that committee different names. So in some board, that would be their student achievement committee. So whatever kind of the teaching and learning piece that's going on in the district that the board is involved in, that's just another name for that.
So if on our curriculum committee, we dove into graduation rates or literacy rates, that might on some other board be called the Student Achievement Committee.
Yes.
But for us, it's the Curriculum Committee.
Right.
I see. Thank you.
Dr. Sainer, if I may. Circling back to the point that Mr. Rees brought up about the Community Relations Committee, I definitely agree that we need to revisit how that committee operates. And I'm curious to know, right, because I would much prefer our board to host some sort of a town hall quarterly, right, or more community forums like we did recently. So I'm wondering, with your extensive work with other boards, what have you seen, how have boards operated to gauge like community concerns and educational aspirations? Like what are some interactive ways you've seen boards do that?
So, I mean, the hard part too is kind of drawing that line of a lot of the how is the work, you know, is the work of the administration. So we might just set a goal of this is the outcome that we want to see of, you know, more engagement, but the board not being the one actually doing that work and determining what that work is. And, you know, we're all such unique communities, and so what works for one community may not work for your community. So I think you really need to have really focus on the needs of your community and have conversations about how you can best reach and engage that community, because like you said, there is no magic bullet for that. If there were, I think someone would be very famous in the state, right, if they were able to figure out how to do that, because it's just, you know, community are constantly changing in terms of their availability, the way they want to be communicated to, the level of communication, the many different ways we have to communicate, and how do we take all of those things and package them or put them together in a way that makes the best sense for your community. You know, I looked at even in some of the comments that, you know, some of your members have made, have said, you know, because of the different hours that our community works and, you know, some of the language differences, that we really have to think about how we do this, and those are challenges perhaps that other communities don't have. So you have to really kind of hone in on your community and find out from them what you're doing that that's reaching them, what what they want from you, and how do you work together with the needs of your community to make sure that, that you're most, like you said, because it really is important to find out, what they want for their students, because this is their, we're doing the work on their behalf, so.
Mr. Crute.
I just want to add quickly to something Ms. Mendez said, which I have seen in a couple of other districts just recently, is the community forums, which apparently you've had one or more perhaps that have been very successful, and I've seen some districts recently expand those, have a few more of them, and have them on a specific topic, but they are, and it may be exactly how you're doing them, made them less formal, even though it has to be advertised as a Board of Education meeting because all the board members are going to be there. But one board I know recently had a community forum on a certain topic. I think it was technology in the schools or something. And what they did was, instead of having a meeting like this, they set up tables around the room and had people could go from different tables to talk about different things. So that, I think the community forum idea is a great way to get information from the district. And the other thing, I just quickly, because I know you have a time constraint, but getting this topic of the board goals versus the district goals, I think is an interesting one. And I just wanted to ask Ms. Peterson if, in her experience, obviously the creation of the board goals is strictly the board's role, and it's because what the board is going to be doing. But when it comes to district goals, and because of the fact that the administration is going to be having to implement the goals, do you view that as a more collaborative process in terms of establishing the district goals?
Oh, absolutely.
Working with the administration and the superintendent in particular in establishing the district goals as opposed to just trying to, impose the district goals?
Oh, absolutely. If, we continue to say that we don't run the schools. So in order for us to have conversations about what those priorities are, we need to hear from the people who do run the schools. And, many times the administration will already have had a retreat where, had conversations from the administration about what they think those priorities are, and then, come to share that with the board. So if we're staying in our lane and staying in our roles, we can't have that discussion without the administration providing us the support, the information, and, that will help guide that conversation. We can't have that conversation without them. So that's a good distinction. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson, it feels like if you're ready, you could make a run for it, but I don't. I wanted to
Before
thank.
anything else comes up. Right?
We have your phone number and your email. I wanted to thank you. I know you're running. You can pack up while I'm talking.
Okay.
I will not be offended at all, but thank you so much for your time. For those of us that have been to NJSBA trainings, the level of support that we get from NJSBA is huge, and the ability to, you don't have to reach out through your president. Any of you have the ability to call or email Ms. Peterson and, with your questions, this is what I'm thinking, how do I make this happen, how do other districts? So thank you for your time, for your expert guidance. Clearly, you read this even better than we did, and we're prepared to really guide us on our journey as we plan our board goals. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson.
Bye.
Okay. Our final item is goal planning for 2022-23. So I am open to suggestions how to attack this. I have a suggestion, but I'm happy to.
I'm interested to hear your suggestion.
Mike, I took some notes. I was wondering if what we should do is identify sort of our hot topic area. I think we already know some, but maybe make a list of however, is it 5, is it 10, is it 15? And then from there, narrow it down to our top 3 or 4. I feel like I'm always the mean parent in our relationship. I would remind the board that we have a referendum that we are supporting and aiming to have our community share information with our community prior to that December 13th election. And so I would ask us to be cognizant of the work that goes into that. Although these board goals will be in effect from now until next June, so certainly there is time after December to accomplish those goals, but I think we're in agreement that our number one priority now is providing our students with the space that they need through that referendum. Are there comments on the plan of attack? Ms. Ruiz, and then
I-
Ms. Grisales.
I think it's helpful if we just name the 3 board goals we had last year
Sure.
as kind of a point of takeoff. And now I do have internet access, I have in front of me. Our first board goal for 21-22 was continue supporting the development of a community school district, increase accountability to our school community for progress on our district goals, and increase the board's financial literacy. I think those are all still works in progress and valid goals. I don't know that they all reflect this year's evaluation, so I just wanted to have that in our mind that those were the 3 from last year.
And I think that's a good point, that there's nothing to say that we can't continue one or more of these goals because we don't feel that we have fully accomplished them into next year, that there's nothing against that. Ms. Grisales.
I think in line with what you're saying, Dr. Sainer, it's perhaps if we use the whiteboard and kind of list our top 3, right? And then go from what's in common for all of us, with keeping in mind that the referendum is, I think, our number 1 goal, board goal, right? And kind of recognizing what is it that we need to do in order to support it and to move it forward, would be my first suggestion. And I think that if we could kind of brainstorm, right? If there's anything else that's out there, any other ideas that any of us have that we are not thinking about, but looking at numbers, right? If we're basing on our second chart, student achievement, and we've kind of talked about what student achievement would look like. Certainly part of a referendum, right? We can't have good student achievement if we don't have space. And then a lot of the 3.0s and the 3.1, right, are really about board performance, operations, relationships, and our community. So I think that, if we base it only on this chart, we have our top 3 or 4 to focus on. I do think it's important for all of us to kind of see it in writing of what's important for all of us, right,
Okay.
at least. I think that process may help it.
Thank you. Okay, so what I'm hearing is we do want to identify the entire list of ideas and then try to narrow it down, and we're going to use the board as a visual.
I would volunteer to write,
Your
but
handwriting
chicken
is
scratch.
horrible. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Cannot do that to the board. Could I have a volunteer to?
I
handle
can write, but we'll just need to scoot.
Okay,
Because if I'm writing, then I'm not talking, so.
this works out really well.
It works out
Those
great.
who laughed enjoyed that. Those who laughed agreed to that.
Okay, so Ms. Ruiz, if you would go up, and do I have a volunteer? And then I would just ask, if the first person says, I'm just gonna, let's say, something from last year, in financial literacy. If you agree, then Ms. Ruiz could put a hash mark beside it to indicate that there are multiple board members interested. So, Mr. Robles, would you mind going first? You could pass if you're, I know I just sprung that on you.
Yeah, I think the community aspect of our goals should be priority. So I don't know if it's just wording it the same way, but that first one that we have, continuing supporting the development of community school district. And I don't know if we're trying to get into the specifics of like the sub-bullets that are there.
I think big picture, right? And then we can narrow it down. I think the idea is to come up with our 3 or 4 big picture items and then come up with the action plan of how we will achieve that identified board goal.
I'll stay with that.
Okay, Ms. Mendez?
To be quite honest with you, that was my number 1 goal, was finding ways for us to connect with the community more as a board, so that they understand the work we're doing and we understand what it is that they want. And then obviously space for our students. And right now that's through our referendum. So those are honestly my top 2. So.
Okay, thank you. Ms.
Dr.
Nutt?
Sainer,
Yes.
just a clarifying point. Developing a community school and connecting to our community, I see is slightly different. So I'm just gonna put connecting to our community as like a sub-point to this.
Okay,
Does that work?
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Nutting?
The ones that have already been spoken about are like the top ones, the referendum. We definitely need space for our students and for our staff to educate properly.
Yeah.
So I really don't even have anything. else to add. Those are like my top.
This is maybe going to be easier than we thought. Ms. Phillips, please.
You know, not to sound like a broken record, but I mean, honestly, as far as, you know, connecting with the community, and that is probably one of my highest. To be honest, I'm the one who wrote the comment that going to these beach meetings or whatever is not an effective use of time. And I'm happy to elaborate on that when we get to it.
Thank you.
So yeah, I would say those are probably the two that I would have identified at this point as well.
Thank you. Ms. Viveros.
More space. The referendum is what's top priority on my mind. As I know, walking through the schools, I see that we need more space for our children.
Okay. And please feel free, you know, I'll come back around a second time. You're not limited to one. Mr. Miller.
So how do we support more student achievement? Because that's the thing that we talked about that we really don't know as a board. And I know it's not something that we can do, but how can we support you so that and then you can tell us that the student achievement is increasing, or, you know, how do we do that? Because that's the whole point of why we're here. So I don't know, because I know it's a district goal, obviously, but how do we support that to be sure that he has everything that he needs, and the administration, to continue to raise the bar for our students, and to know that we're not leaving any of the students behind, that, you know, we have a lot of things in place, the iReady, where they're able to measure and see where students are, but how do we translate that into our students gaining knowledge that is going to help them in the end to be successful once they go through? Like, I don't know how we do that.
Okay. I have an idea, but we're just brainstorming topics now. Did you have something else, Mr. Miller? I didn't want to cut you off.
That's all right.
Thank you. Ms. Grisales.
Referendum for me is number one, like I mentioned. Number two would be definitely our, what I call community engagement, right, which includes what Ms. Mendez and Mr. Robles mentioned. Thirdly, I would give a little bit more of what examples of what Mr. Miller was saying. I think that we need to work as a board to hold our administration accountable for more outcomes, right? I'm thinking ideas like ESL graduate, like not graduation, but how are they moving? How many children are moving from starting in ESL to now coming out of the programming? How fast or how slow? Graduation rates, test results, right? iReady. Right, those are my ideas, and it comes to the focus of us as a board, and asking for those metrics more consistently. And then board operations, like I mentioned, in my head, operations is all the ones that we got 3.0 and 3.1. Board operations, board performance, board staff relationships, and board and community would be the 4 areas for us to focus on, in my view.
Would you please repeat those?
And
Yes.
would you consider board and community already up there, because that's item number 2? Okay.
Yeah, so board and community is up there, thank you, yes. So board staff relationships, board performance, and board operations would be what I would call under the umbrella of board governance, maybe. Right, and how do we hold ourselves accountable to have a better environment for us to feel comfortable, to get more acquainted with Robert's Rules of Order so we can speak, you know, more openly. I think another great idea that Mr. Good was talking about, that community forum, you called it? Something of teaching our community about what our business, how we run our business. I think a lot of people think that we do it because we're mean or because we don't want to listen to the people, to the community, but we're respecting how we were trained. And I think we need to train our community in regards to that.
Yes. Ms. Ruiz.
So, board operations, and this is not in my order of priority, but just because Ms. Grisales mentioned it, I would love a board goal of becoming a certified board. We've come a long way, and we've got a lot to work on with the referendum. That could be a long-term goal that we start this year, and if, if we don't achieve it by the end of 2023, then continue. So if it's okay with you, Ms. Grisales, I would put board operations / certified board. I think becoming a certified board addresses a lot of the governance. A certified board knows Robert's Rules of Order. A certified board has effective committees. So the more training and practice we have, the better. The referendum, you know, the word itself, right, is, I think it's broad, and that's the point right now. I'm probably the last person that needs to say it, but I want to refocus. I want the board to lead in refocusing the conversation away from the referendum to our students need space. This is not about the board raising taxes. This is not about one board member running for a different position. This is not about the materials being really expensive right now and this not being the time. This is about 1,000 students, more than we have capacity for, that impact all students. So yes, referendum, but with a clear, sharp focus on student needs. And yes, I know we have to sell it with taxes and pretty words and all that. But I think the more we focus on our student needs, the more true we are to our task as board members. And I would just add equity on supporting a community school development. And the reason I would add equity here is that for me, that word includes staff. All professions, I think, are currently experiencing the retention resignation challenge. I think our country as a whole is experiencing a shift of relationships. I'm very lucky to work in a place where I genuinely love my colleagues and love my boss, my immediate boss. I don't know that that's true for everybody, and I don't know that that has to be true for everybody, but it should be our goal, because if we have happy custodians, happy IT personnel, happy teachers, happy nurses, happy social workers, happy superintendents, we have a happy school district, and happy students learn more. So for me, equity says all that. Maybe I'll put equity/happy, but it's equity in all of it, and that includes hiring more staff that look like our students, that includes special education, that includes addressing the poverty needs of our most vulnerable students who, forget having a laptop. They literally don't have a roof over their head or dinner at home when they get there. So it's just equity/happy, but it encompasses all of that.
Mr. Miller.
Just looking at what it is that we do, because the community school, the administration has coordinated all of those services and activities. So I'm just trying to get at, and it's hard with any of these, what is it that we're doing there?
Okay, I think that's a good point. I think we're still identifying
Yeah, no, I
areas.
wanted to say it because.
Before we come up with our action plans. I agree with all of that, and I don't need to reiterate because you've all done that so eloquently for our community and for each other. The one thing that I would add, and I think it fits under board operations and certified board, and maybe we can generalize that, is in the comments of the board self-evaluation, and in many of the conversations that I've had with you, a recurring theme is team building. Some of us are friends outside of this room. And we see each other and we talk to each other about our kids or even board things sometimes. And some of us don't see each other for, a host of reasons. And I think that team building could lead to general better relationships and trust, and the ability to have conversations in a productive way to make our board more productive. And, we always quote that Iowa Lighthouse study that shows that boards that are effective lead districts that are effective and lead to student achievement. Is there anything missing from that list that anybody would like to add before we narrow it down or not, or, wordsmith it?
Can I just?
You need a
I'm
micro.
adding a check mark.
Ms.
Use the
Ruiz, you need a
microphone.
microphone. I'm sorry.
So just
Or-
speak.
I'm sorry.
Right there.
Yeah.
Am I adding a check mark for all of these
Yes,
for
please.
you, Dr. Sainer?
Yes, please.
Those lefty check marks.
So can I ask, and I'm sorry, Ms. Phillips, your hair's looking good tonight, but it's in my way. Is that last one, is that one area, the board operations, team building, okay.
Right,
So
1, 2, 3, 4.
So I see 4 goals. Ms. Peterson mentioned that 3 or 4 is a good number. I'm a little hesitant because I think all of these need to happen, but obviously we kind of have a laser focus on our students' spatial needs moving forward for the next few months. Dr. McLaughlin.
So the only thing I would ask, I think student achievement is going to come down to being a district goal, clearly. That's, the board can certainly say, we would like to have a frequency of reports, we would like to see this in the reports, we'd like to be a part of this committee's agenda, whatever it might be. But ultimately, I don't think there's any way to get around that student achievement's going to be a district goal, not a board goal. That's just my thought.
I 100% agree. And so my idea, I guess we're moving into this phase. My idea was for whether we do this collectively or we designate an ad hoc committee to do a little research and find out what is the important information that we need to know. You know, do we need to know tests, we live in New Jersey, which test scores, graduation rate? Like, I think we could rattle off a bunch off the top of our head, but are there other things that we should be looking at, you know, doing due diligence? And, you know, and then again, we would have to work with administration. You know, it doesn't make sense to do graduation data in November, right? So you know, but holding the administration accountable for dissemination of what we feel are key student achievement indicators. Mr. Miller.
I don't think that we should have a committee to do that. I think the administration should recommend to us what can they collect to be able to show us what they believe is student achievement. I don't think we can do that. We don't have that knowledge. We don't even know what data they currently have. So I think the administration, if that's the district goal, is to demonstrate student achievement, they need to come up with that, and then we can dialogue on it and maybe ask questions to get a little deeper, but that shouldn't be us as a committee.
Ms. Ruiz.
I think what I heard Charlene Peterson say is that we would identify our board goal of, we want to know an increase, for example, student graduation rate from high school, student participation in sports, and student and more consistent school attendance, right? Let's say that those are the 3 we choose. Then I think, as Mr. Miller is saying, then the administration can help us decide what assessments are available that we already have access to through the state or that we can implement internally to track graduation, attendance, and extracurricular activities. And then report on those 3 every 3 months or every 3 years or whatever makes sense.
Thank you for clarifying. I did at no point meant to ask for additional assessment, only a report of data that already exists. Ms. Grisales.
I would add to Ms. Rui's comment that it's that if we have a student achievement board goal, that it is we holding or monitoring, supporting or overseeing those assessments or those tests that the administration or metrics may give to us. Does that make sense? I don't think I
got a little lost at the end.
Me too.
Could you try
So let me start again. So I would add that our board goal is really identifying our responsibility and holding the administration responsible and supporting it or overseeing that those metrics are provided to the board.
Mr. Crute and then Dr. McLaughlin.
Yeah, I just want to say.
Sorry,
that
you asked first.
Sorry. But I just want to say, if you think back to what Ms. Peterson said, when she first started talking about the board goals versus the district goals and the distinction between them, and then I jumped in and said something, and then she, about whether it should be collaborative with the superintendent on the district goals. But what she specifically said was, the board goals are the board deciding what the board is going to do. And I'm just, obviously, it's up to the board to decide its own board goals. But I'm just, as I'm listening to this, and I've also been through some of these sessions before, all of this discussion about student achievement just continues to sound like a district goal as opposed to a board goal. Because everything you're talking about doing is something probably that would be tasked to the administration to do the research, to look into the things, to determine the information. Now, in that collaborative, the board still has a role in the district goals in overseeing them, and also in working collaboratively with the administration to determine when they come back to you and say, look, we think we can look at graduation rates, and we think we could look at attendance, and then you can say, yeah, we like that. We'd like to have graduation rates and attendance and then you work collaboratively with them. Whenever we come around on different things people are saying about student achievement, continues to sound more like a district goal than a board goal. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Dr. McLaughlin.
The part about the board definitely has oversight of anything that's in a district goal because it's the first half of the CSA evaluation. So obviously I have to hit each one of those goals in the evaluation and provide evidence that the board is expecting to support those. So I think it's kind of built in already. I hate to use the term, don't waste one of your goals on it because it's already there. Obviously the board also has to adopt the district goals that we dialogue on and propose. So I think there's a lot of oversight already built into what we have.
Mr. Miller.
So, yeah, and so I want to rewind the videotape because we went back and forth on that with Charlene, and she had said that it wasn't a board goal. When I brought it up, I just wanted to know, was there any role in us supporting that? But it's definitely a district goal that we'll dialogue on so that we understand that the students are achieving. So I only brought it up to see, is there something that we can do to help the administration in that? And I don't know what it is.
I think the administration asks us to buy new textbooks and pay for iReady and support new teachers in certain categories.
Adopt curriculum.
Yes.
All of those things all support those goals. And what I can try to do in my role is to make sure that when we ask for those things that I tie it back to a district goal so the board, sees the connection.
And I guess some way for us to report that to the public in an organized way where we are showing the connection of all these things and how it has improved. And I guess that's the hard part, is bringing it all together. So can we adopt some way to more comprehensively report yearly or whatever it would be? All of those, we talked about a lot of measures, but there are many other ways that the administration can look at student achievement that we can report to the public so they have confidence that the students are achieving.
So I'm hearing that you want to kind of change number 3 to share student achievement with the public, because that's a thing that the board could do.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Ruiz, thank you.
Dr. Sainer, given this discussion, I propose that the board move forward with teasing out the subpoints of referendum as a goal, continue community support, community school development support as a goal, and board operations certified board as a goal, and then continue the conversation on student achievement as part of our district goals when we get there, which is not today, right?
Okay, do I have a second? I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Grisales, is there discussion about the but these are board, so
It's an informal proposal.
We're just Robert
Not
rules of
formal.
board.
Well, it's not
Mr. Miller.
So what is it that we're doing specifically in the supporting the community that's different than that's already happening? I know we talked about the community relations and having the forums, and I think we've all agreed that we need to engage the community more with informal forums, or perhaps I like the ideas of certain topics. So I just want to know specifically that goal, what are we hoping to achieve that the district's not already doing?
One thing that popped into my mind when Ms. Mendez asked her question is, I believe, I'm forgetting the name of the is it weekly or monthly magazine that we get from NJSBA? I believe it had an article on, I'm blanking on the name of it, but innovative ways to reach out to the community. So an idea would be to task the Community Relations Committee or a different ad hoc committee with doing some research into best practices, at least coming up with a list of X number of new community engagement strategies that we then as a board could narrow down to, okay, in 22, 23, we're going to do this. People liked the community forum, so we're gonna do that again, but we have new idea B and new idea C, that we will accomplish. Ms. Ruiz.
Just for organization, and I agree with all that, but as we tease out what we mean by these three, can I go ahead and delete 3, knowing that we'll do that as a district goal, so we can just tease out the other 3?
Are there any, Mr. Robles?
I just wanted to say, I think student achievement sharing of whatever that is should be part of that community transparency communication that we're doing, which we hadn't necessarily done in that level. I think a lot of and I'm looking at both the district goals and the board goals, a lot of the things from the district were more around programs and things that we were gonna bring, but not really the metrics that showed these student achievement, perhaps as we're thinking about it right now. So I would rather, instead of deleting it or removing it, I would rather move it under number 2 and then seeing how it fits in the big scheme of
So
community.
you're amending the motion, which is not binding. We are not taking legal action tonight. These are our board goals. So I hear, Mr. Robles, that you are amending the motion to move student achievement under community. We'll parse that out. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Miller.
But I
Did
wanted-
misinterpret your motion?
No, I just wanted to put the key word in front of it, sharing student
Yes.
achievement, which is,
Okay,
Sharing
so
information.
yeah.
I have an
whatever.
amendment to the motion. I have a second. And now discussion. Mr. Miller, very easy.
So I like the title Community Engagement Strategies, and to include the topics underneath it that would be student achievement and some other things that we could engage the community. And maybe it's 4 things. We have to come up with what they are.
Okay, I think we need I like that. I think we need a verb, right? So we're going to identify community engagement strategies.
To promote
then-
a school community
and
environment.
I feel like, and then what do? Once we've identified them, then we want to act on them, right? We want to.
Yes.
Execute.
Yeah.
Thank you. Execute the good one, not the bad one. Ms. Ruiz, are you capturing this?
Yes.
Okay, so we are going to identify.
achievement in a community engagement
So we are going to, I think what we're, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to identify community engagement strategies and then execute some of, that doesn't sound very measurable, but some of them. And then under that, categories of information that we want to share.
I
Well,
think you could have put identify and execute community engagement strategies.
Thank you, Mr. Robles. You're hired.
Dr. Sainer, if I may, remember that we have a shared document with board goals from
Mhm.
2021. So I just created tabs for this year. That's
Thank
something
you.
that we can, if we
Yes.
want to kind of start writing it on
would
there. I know we
you-
have it there.
Would you start, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
open your mouth, you opened yourself up for that. And I will, if there are board members that don't have this document
I was going to say,
open,
share them.
I will share it immediately with all of you so that we're all looking. I think it's hard to do that. Ms. Ruiz is doing a great job.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's like the the draft, right? And I
yes,
think if
then
we
the
have,
pretty version, so that we can share.
and so if you guys feel free to add, make this
Just to be clear,
team.
Ms. Rosales will be typing and not handwriting.
correct.
Yes, she is
Typing.
typing in our shared document.
Not writing, ever.
And then at the end of the meeting, we'll read them out loud to the public so that they can hear the final.
At one point, my mother told me that I was going to be a doctor, okay, because of my handwriting.
Say no more.
Okay, I just sent, well, it's working. I just sent the link, so if you don't, if you didn't have that open, it's just an easy way to find it. Okay. Ms. Grisales, do you think that you can wordsmith while we go on to discuss a different board strategy, and then we can come back and polish?
Correct.
Okay.
I could do that. If anyone else
Ms.
wants to
Ruiz, you're
take
doing a
this on,
fabulous
please.
job of I don't know, we've got many levels of revision going on simultaneously here. Just
The
in
link,
this
the link's
room.
not working, just
What's
telling.
the link's not working?
No.
It's not a link, it's just letters.
Sorry, well, you could copy it and paste it into. It was linked in mine? Oh, it was, okay, so. so if you, I'm sending it again. I have now, oh, it won't let me link. Hang on.
It was in viewing only, so perhaps.
Everybody here should have access because we are, okay, so you have to, oh, jeez. Everybody here
I got
should
it. You have a 2000 in front of it. That's why the link is not working.
Yeah.
You just have to do from HTTPS on, and it works.
Okay, so I just sent it again. I apologize for that. If you scroll down, you'll see the highlight, correct link. Okay, so Ms. Grisales is working on wordsmithing what Ms. Ruiz has developed up there. Do we want to tackle, I think referendum's an easy one. So we need a formalized, goal here. Mr. Robles, I'm looking at you because it turns out this is your area of expertise. I think starting with, we want to support the referendum.
I have a proposal.
Go for it.
So, for the,
Right, thank you. Is it possible for Ms.
For
Ruiz,
the-
excuse me, is it, Mr. Latour, is it possible for Ms. Ruiz just to have the transportable mic? Thank you so much.
She said she was going to write and not talk.
I know, it was a really good plan for a minute.
For the 2022 to 2023 school year, the Dover Board of Education commits to sharing accurate information about our students' needs for more space and working toward the success of the December 2022 referendum and continued success of plans to construct new school buildings.
Okay, so I hear a motion, second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Viveros. These, I know they don't count, but it's, Robert, it's a way to keep us organized. Any discussion? Thank you for listing them as suggestions. Suggestions on wording or, Ms. Ruiz, can you get your, I don't see any other comments, so if you could get that up there for Ms. Grisales, that would be awesome.
You could verbally say it. I got quite of it. December 2022 referendum and the continued success to what? You want to
So
start again?
The
Sharing and
For the 2022-2023 school year, the Dover School Board members commit to sharing accurate information about our students' needs for more space and working to pass the December 22 referendum.
wait. Mm-hmm.
As well as continuing to support the construction of the necessary new buildings.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I think we need some action items. How will we do that? What will be the actual actions we will take? Mr.
Before we
Miller.
do that, I'm not seeing what you're typing, so
So we're not in the same form then?
no, we're not in the same form.
Oh, for crying out loud. And I closed that window accidentally,
What's the
okay?
name of the document you're on?
Board and district goals.
If you go and
It's not
search
a,
in your
Google
drive,
Sheets file?
Google Sheets, yes. Mm-hmm.
and if you look,
1 second. I think I have access to Sharon, so 1 second.
you should all be editors if you're not.
Oh, I'm the
available.
owner, that's why.
All right.
Yep,
found
I
it.
Oh,
can,
so
This is
yeah.
I
today.
can switch over. Don't worry, I can switch over.
I found, is that you?
Now my internet is out. Oh my goodness.
It won't let me open. It says it's owned by Carol.
do I need to do something?
Yeah, the one I had open was 2021-2022.
Yeah, there's one that has all of them since 2021.
Tabs,
Right.
it should have
Are you
had
not
tabs
working
for
on
all.
that one?
Yeah, I don't see it.
Yeah, I'll look, I have it, so I'll try to share it with them. I see some K. Who's K? Who's that?
That's me. So
Yeah,
the link you sent had only 2020, 21 to 22, and 20 to 21.
Okay, so
The document, that's totally different. I don't know what
Yeah, I can't find, my internet isn't working. Ms. Grisales?
I will try to share it with everyone right now. 1 second.
That's what happens when you use a Google ripoff product.
It. Oh, that is not
spoken
accurate.
words. Yeah, of course.
Okay, I'm in Diana's now.
Okay, good. Do you guys get it?
Where did you find
So
it?
it's
I emailed it to you.
Oh, okay.
Halfway over, it started.
Go to your email
If you could just
All right.
stand
because it
there,
works
that'd be awesome.
best that way.
Thank you.
All right.
Some stab
Let's
there,
see.
huh?
So can I just,
Okay, so I'm sorry, I want to make sure everybody has access to this
Yep,
document. So I see
everyone's on it.
Benjamin and
Tia,
Carol,
Jacqueline,
and-
Scott, Ray.
And I see 2021, I see 2021 and 2022, 2020 and 2021, but I don't see you, Ms. Grisales, so
Yeah, I'm in there.
I'm in there.
It's just too many
it
to
too
capture maybe at the top.
yeah.
Do you see this?
So the document that I'm looking at that has the last 2 years of board and district goals is 2021-2022 board and district goals. Is that where you are, Ms.
And
Grisales?
there, you should see 2 tabs, new ones for 2022,
I do
2023.
the file name is just board and district goals.
So
Okay, so we're on
do
the
search.
front.
Yep, go to,
Okay.
if you go
So
to your
let's just
email.
make sure, and then I will clean up that, the board drive,
Yes,
to make
that's mine.
sure that there is only one comment, or one copy of this document. Okay, now I see Mr. Robles, I see, Ms. Grisales, I see Ms. Viveros, Ms. Phillips, Mr. Slam, thank you, and, Mr. Miller, Ms. Nutting. Is anybody not in there that needs a link?
I'm not in, but I haven't even tried. I'm just paying attention to
Okay.
everything's going on.
Okay, let me know if you want me to send you, so you can see the final. Okay, Ms. Grisales, are you caught up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got number 1 done, and then the last one, which is board operations.
So I'm sorry, are we gonna just leave it at that, or we're gonna go back to actually working on the
I-
The action item.
first title?
Up to you, how would you like it?
I was just gonna say, I think I get the whole sentence, but I think it's too long to be the actual goal, so I don't know if we wanna just shorten it to just be something like the ones that we had last year, which are like really short and sweet, the
Okay,
actual,
do you have a proposal?
But before that, I
Mhm.
just want to remind the board that last year, all that wordsmithing was done like online. We
Okay.
didn't wordsmith in the meeting. Everyone had access to this.
And start it.
We suggested edits, and as long as everyone agreed that the edits still maintained the ideas, we did that.
Okay.
I'm happy wordsmithing tonight, but that will
It's
probably make our meeting
awkward
much
with,
longer.
it's awkward with so many people. Do we want to I do like Mr. Robles' suggestion that we bullet some action items. I do think we should agree on that and not, so what will we do here to, share information?
Dr. Sainer, if I may just clarify, for those of you that can and want to multitask, please feel free to also type and go in there. It makes it easier when everyone is kind of, adding. I know Jacqueline and I do that, so you're welcome to please wordsmith as we're talking.
Thank you.
Dr. Sainer, if I may, I mean, one of the first things that comes to mind for me when I see that goal and I think about an action item is, right, hosting some sort of a forum again where we can answer questions and share information. But then I'm also wondering, because I know that we now have a communications committee, will we be stepping on their toes because we don't know yet what that committee is planning to do, so I don't know.
What, Ms. Nutting?
I don't think it would be stepping on their toes. I think it would just be extra information that's placed out there to our public and to the community. I think it would just be other faces and not just the same faces, which I think would probably reach more people.
Okay. So, community forum, and Ms. Rees, you had a comment?
Yes, in terms of an action item, I would invite us to attend
the community forums that our communications committee with the Laura Bishop group present, and then take that information, right? Because not everyone in our community is going to attend those forums. So take that information, and we're at ShopRite, and we run into our neighbor, like, hey, did you go to the community forum? No, I didn't go. And you know she didn't go because you were there and you didn't see her. I went, let me tell you what I heard, right? So that everywhere you go, the soccer game.
Microphone.
Thank you, sorry. So that everywhere you go, you are, one, sharing the information, but sharing accurate information because you went to the community forums. You have the card that the Laura Bishop group made for us, right? So that you are confident, that we are confident in sharing that information. We might even want to think about a concerted social media strategy, right? Every time someone says, there's plenty of space. No, actually, I am the parent of a student, and I can tell you that this classroom has X students more than they are supposed to have a capacity for, right? Within the bounds of what the Laura Bishop group is telling us is the right talking points.
So what I hear is that, and I know from attending the Referendum Communications Committee initial meeting last night, is that the Laura Bishop LBC will be preparing infographics, will be preparing information that will be shared on our district social media, and so an easy thing for us to do would be to share, reshare, retweet, whatever, those pieces of accurate information with our community.
And also, I think one of the bullet points should be Ms. Ruiz's suggestion of the folks who are not on the communications committee to attend any forums that that committee does host.
Okay. Attend. It's referred to as RCC, Referendum Communication Committee forums, and then I see share. Okay. Any other, Mr.
Well,
Miller?
in order for us to do this, we also need to know what the plan is from the consultant and so when are we going to get that information? Because we need to know that as part of our communication.
That is, I would, Dr. McLaughlin, could you elaborate on, will that information be shared through the Finance Committee? Or I was going to ask Ms. Nutting sorry, Ms. Nutting, I was going to ask you privately, but I was going to ask Ms. Nutting to report, as she is a member of that committee, along with other board members who attended, on what happened and what the plan is. Okay,
So the August meeting?
Sure, you will hear at least what has been established by then.
And anything you can send out ahead of time, because if we're talking to people, we still need to know. I know there's the sheet with some information, but I don't know if that is usable, depending on what.
The best source of information is the website.
Okay.
So there's all the components for the referendum are on the website as they exist right now. The big piece that we do have to wait on is the state outcome on what level of aid is going to be provided, because obviously the big question that a lot of people have is what's going to be the tax impact. And until the state finishes their work, and it is looking like they're getting at the end of that piece, we won't have that information.
Okay.
Any other? Of course.
And I think it's really important that the board work closely with the committee and with the group, the Laura Bishop group, because there are rules about how things can be presented, and I think I'm preaching to the choir because I've heard everyone saying provide accurate information, which is definitely the one of the touchstones of what you can do. But there are rules about how the board can advocate and whether you can, what you can do to say, vote, like, you don't want to get in trouble for, it's best to make sure you're coordinating with the group and with the committee to share things appropriately.
Yeah, one of the follow-on questions with that is, social media and a board's responsibility. I've seen some people share links and not say anything, and some people engage in conversation. And I don't know if that hurts or helps us, depending on the strategy that the Laura Bishop Group wants us to take. So I think that's something we have to understand collectively and what our role is. I haven't said anything on social media. When I talk to people, it's a different story, but I know sometimes people can turn social media around into a real negative thing. And so I'm wondering, with your meeting with the committee, how are we to engage people on social media and our friends? Do we do that, or do we not? Or do we just send links and not say anything?
They did comment, go, I'm sorry, Ms. Nutting.
So when we did meet, it was basically the information that we already have. A lot of it is just like Dr. McLaughlin said, it's on our website. So right now, at this point in time, it should be directing them to that. If they had any other questions, we're working on it, and we are going to be updating you as soon as we get the information. And the information that we have right now is all there.
Okay.
One of the things that they did mention was sharing information, good. Engaging in an online battle, not good.
Yeah. No, I know that, but I'm just making
right,
sure.
So resharing information, the website's been updated, accurate, tax information is now available, that's good. Engaging is, they said it was less useful.
Dr. Steiner, if I may, I know speaking for myself personally, I have shared a link and said nothing on the Dover Forum because there were a lot of questions about the referendum and a lot of questions that I felt were answered by the website that was newly updated recently, but folks didn't know about it, right? So I just shared the link and then watched the discussion, right? But I'm wondering, and I've only ever visited the site via my mobile device, and I'm fairly technologically savvy, but I'm wondering if maybe this might be the wrong forum to suggest this, but some sort of a tutorial on how to maneuver through the page to get the information that you're looking for, right? Because there's all different tabs, so someone might be looking for, what it's going to look like. Someone might be looking for the tax impact, so some sort of an instructional video on how to maneuver through that page, so to speak.
We can pass that feedback on to LBC. They might be able to we've all seen Ms. Sirigliano made us one for curriculum, right? How to navigate through Atlas. So we could ask that they make how to navigate through the referendum webpage. So thank you for that suggestion.
I'm waiting to be recognized. I'm not going to speak until she's ready.
Mr. Miller.
Okay, good. So I'm thinking that when you first go to the district page, you have to look for where the referendum is. I think it should be right on the home page.
It is. There is a link right on the left that says referendum.
I don't see
Important links.
Nope.
Right there, important links.
Where?
Go down, right there, on the left.
Okay. All right. So I didn't see it. I guess I'm expecting it like right in my face.
Like in the news feed? We could put it in the news feed.
Almost like
sometimes the news feed gets pushed down. Like
the menu at the top where it says home, our district, referendum in bold red, something like that. Because then you see it, right?
Yep.
It's right there.
Okay,
'Cause
so
I didn't
I
see it.
see 1 and 2 are finished. Improve, I can't talk anymore. Improve board operations and become a certified board. And then what are some action items under that item? We have team building. We have staff. Goals should be SMART, right? I apparently cannot sit in this seat and speak at the same time. So S is, help me, we've all done this. M is measurable, that's my favorite. Timely, is T timely?
No. It is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Okay, And so the time bound's easy. These are all going to happen within, except for number 1, that will happen by December 13th. The rest of these will happen by June 30th, 2023. Okay, so team building, can we have a, perhaps 6 times in the next year? Is that a lot?
That's a lot.
Okay. Now we know who doesn't want to hang out with me.
No.
Okay.
I like to hang out, but.
All right. Well, now you know who my friends are. Okay, so maybe 3, Ms. Nutting, please.
If you're suggesting 6 times in 1 year, then I would say going to all the other subcommittees that we have to, the town meetings, I think this would be, I have to suggest, like Ms. Phillips, it would probably be a better use of the time, not saying that getting to our town meetings are not important, but also our team building ourselves is important. And if you held it at least, I would say 5 times in the year instead of 6, that would probably work.
I agree. And these could be formal. They could be whole board. They could also be next Friday night, come over to my backyard and we're going to have a cookout and not talk about any board business. We're going to talk about our kids and the weather. Ms. Mendez.
When I think about team building, I think of like a group activity, all of us, right? A group activity is some sort of obstacle course where we have to lean on each other to complete the obstacle course. I think of stuff like that, not just let's go to Dr. Stainer's backyard and have some of her amazing cookies, home-baked cookies.
I'm taking hits from all sides tonight. No one wants to hang out. Okay.
So that's what I think about when I think of team building, and I'm open to doing it 6 times a year, but I don't know where any of us are gonna find the time for that, but yeah.
Okay. Ms. Ruiz.
I love the saying that if you want work done, give it to a busy person. Every person on this board wears like 10 other hats, not just as parent or mom or dad taxi, but also literally serving on other boards and having full-time jobs. We created a board goal of having 2 community forums, and then the pandemic hit, and I'll say miraculously, because it took a lot of work from Mr. Robles, Mr. Miller, myself, and Ms. Phillips, but mostly Ms. Phillips, to do just 1 community forum. And we've talked before about, or at least I have said, let's have a dinner, let's get together with Ms. Mullen, and it hasn't happened. So I think that 6 is setting ourselves up for stress and failure, especially going from 0 to 6. So I think at least 1 annual kind of productive is what I would maybe call what Ms. Mendez is suggesting, like an actual organized activity. We are going to maybe go up to a place that actually facilitates this type of stuff. And then 1 social, we're just having a barbecue in somebody's home, and start with that.
Another suggestion could be if we have training, we could do what we did tonight, which is share a meal together prior to the training, and then be productive, as you mentioned, by having Ms. Peterson come in and do some area of training that we've identified as necessary. Ms. Grisales.
I don't want to be, I really think that it's not good use of our taxpayers' time or vote of confidence in us as public officials to socialize with each other. I hope no one gets offended by this, but I think it is more important for us to be trained. And if we are trained together, and that's part of our team building, that's how I see team building. I agree, Ms. Mendez, in regards to the social. I think that that's something that we could or should do outside of our public officer role. And I can be wrong, and it's the majority, of course, right? But I do think that out of respect for our role, which is our students, the staff, our school, I know there may be personal situations or barriers to us working as a team, but I think at the table we have to focus on our professional role and being trained and moving forward our education for this role. I understand in practice and in theory us having acquaintance and getting to know each other. I don't know if that's the best use. If I can be clear on that.
Dr. Stainer, if I may.
Yeah.
I disagree, and I don't see team building as social. We can have all the training in the world, but if we can't get along, right, in our committee meetings, at board meetings, if we don't respect Robert's Rules of Orders because we don't respect each other, because we don't like each other, we cannot be effective, which then affects student achievement. So I think some sort of team building exercise is a great use of tax dollars, in my opinion.
Can I suggest a split the, Ms. Netting?
There was one training session that we did attend, and I think that actually, that one would be perfect for us. I can't remember the name of the class, but I don't know if you remember, Diana.
Ms. Nutting, are you talking about the one where we did activities and they gave us cards and we did a team building,
You
right?
kind of realize what color person.
Correct, right. That was, right. And that's the team building training that I think about, right? And that was very productive for us to be able, with people who weren't in our districts, to get to know them, right? Their strengths, their areas of growth. I was carrying the cards to a little, right? And they really, a little time ago, and it's really highlighting you, you're aware of you, and then how you impact others is what I agree.
Mr. Miller?
I think there has to be some way to get to know people, because sometimes you can misinterpret what people say because you don't know where they're coming from. And so for the several years that I've been on the board with new people, at first I had a different impression, but then as I get to know people, I understood more where they were coming from, which I never would have had that understanding if we didn't have more interaction. So somehow we do need to do that. I'm for going in someone's backyard. Don't say I'm not saying I'm not, but.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
So I'll come to your house. Did you make that zucchini bread?
I would.
Oh, that was really good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Viveros?
I feel that maybe we could mix the two, a backyard event, but games where we're not only competitive, but we're helping one another, because it's sort of team building. We could build teams and play specific yard games to save money.
Okay, so I was thinking of splitting the difference, where we adopt a board goal that we will meet twice in the next year. One will be, we can certainly do team building activities in a backyard, a living room. I'm 5 feet tall. You really want me to climb over a wall, something like that. And then we combine another one with sharing a meal together, and then having Ms. Peterson come in and train us on an area that we feel our group needs work on.
I would invite you all to go camping. I have enough tents for everybody. We can go for the weekend. You'll love it.
I won't, but thank you for the invitation. Ms. Ruiz?
Not that this needs to be an action item. Not that this needs, thank you, to be an action item. But one of the ways that I have enjoyed getting to know fellow board members is at the workshop in October in Atlantic City. I hope that you all go, if not this year, at least at some point in your board career. And also the leadership weekend. And that was...
It was canceled.
Right. And so if we can commit to taking off of work, right? I mean, we all, taking off of work and going together at least once in the next year to one training, or to the delegate assembly. Yes, virtual. Let's all go virtual. It's virtual, yeah.
You still share, right? If you're texting each other as you're in the delegate assembly, you still get that.
It will not be fun.
Yeah,
it's fun for me, but I don't know that it'll be fun for everybody.
So we've identified a purely fun activity. We've identified a meal and a training, and we've identified every person on the board will attend an NJSBA training session to what you need, right? What Mr. Miller decides to go to will be different from Ms. Viveros. Are we good with that one?
I'm sorry, Dr. Sainer.
So we're gonna do one meeting that is frivolous, has such a negative connotation, but if just fun, we're going to do informal. Thank you. This is why we have him around for that and a couple other reasons. So one informal, one training, one group training, and we will each commit to attend And I think report back, right? That's how we hold each other accountable, and attend one NJSBA sponsored training on the topic of your choice.
Yeah, because I think one of the things that we miss is that a lot of us have taken training and different things, but there's been no reporting back.
Yeah. And it's really hard, like, I think at some point we made an effort to, right, this idea of turnkey, right? That Mr. Miller goes to a NJSBA session that lasts 3 hours and he's gonna come back. No, he can't. But what he can do is tell us the overview. And then if I decide I need to know more about that, I can reach out to him for some more information. But I wouldn't know to do that unless he's reported back. So I think that's a really key point. I see staff and board relationships. This one's a tricky one for me because of our, I guess, legally mandated separation from the staff. I don't know a better way to put it. Okay, that's all we got. If suggestions on that one, Ms. Ruiz.
So, we don't have a legally mandated separation from our staff. Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin. We don't have a legally mandated separation from our staff. What we have is a legally mandated chain of command. So if a staff member has a challenge, they are supposed to bring that challenge to their immediate supervisor, to the building principal or manager, depending on the field, to the superintendent. And then if there's still a challenge, depending on that person's role, whether they're tenured, there may be an audience before the board. There may not. That's their employment. As far as I understand it, there is nothing stopping me from visiting the school in a classroom and having a conversation with the staff, or making sure to greet them and listen to them at any of the functions that we go to. And I'll speak for myself. When I first became a board member, the culture that I felt and the message that I internalized was stay away. Just don't, say hello and keep walking. That is not I never did that. I don't know if anyone else has received that message. I don't know what message the staff is what I said, that the culture I felt, right? I don't know what our staff is feeling about our board. I love the presentations. And so that's kind of the staff coming to us. How, if at all, do we go to them? And one of my own personal goals was to have a tour of all the buildings. 6 years ago, I've never done it.
It's happening. It's
I know it's happening, finally. But no thanks to me, right? It was something I had in my head and never did. So, what ways? Actually, we do the staff appreciation, the teacher appreciation. That's one time a year that we'll get baskets and kind of drop them off. Maybe we can add a little more to that, not just to drop off a basket, but an interaction.
I mean, in the past, we have toured all the schools. We made sure that we rotated our Board of Education locations to each of the schools so that people in those communities could come to a board meeting. But we also were invited if we wanted to come have lunch, because there's been comments about food choice and different things. And we don't have that interaction to kind of know. So I don't know if there's opportunities for us to be able to come to something or plan to do tours. I think that would draw us closer to, sort of what's happening without overstepping.
Dr. Sainer,
yes, thank you.
I recently reached out to board leadership and the administration asking for a tour when we switched locations to the middle school, and we were trying to I was reading through the information okay, where am I supposed to be? And I couldn't figure it out, and I was like, you know what? I need a tour of all the schools. So I think that a tour is definitely important for all of us. And I love what Ms. Ruiz said when she said that the staff comes right to our meetings and does presentations, but they're kind of coming into our space, so to speak. I would love to meet them where they're at, and I love the idea of going and having lunch right in the cafeteria, and I think that's a great idea, actually. So yeah, and I don't know what that looks like logistically, if we can all do it, if it's like a rotation, I don't know what it looks like, but I think those are all great ideas.
There are a lot of informal staff interactions if you go to, we've all gone to back to school night, concerts, the list is endless, right? And as you walk around, greeting staff members, getting to know them, I think those are all already built into our system, but are also very important. I'm sorry, was it you, Ms. Ruiz, and then Ms. Grisales?
The pandemic stopped some things, but when Dr. McLaughlin first joined our team, there was a welcome, almost like a commencement, and I think Ms. Grisales and Dr. Sainer, you attended, or maybe just Ms. Grisales as our board president. Maybe that's something that we can all be invited to, and right, if you have work responsibilities, you can't go, but maybe inviting the board, and not to say our names and put it on the flyer, but to, hey, there is this staff appreciation day or professional development. You are welcome to come and sit and say hello.
I think it would be nice to show up on the first day of school and stand at the front. You have two of us at each building and just say hi as they walk into the building, right? That's very simple.
Yeah, I do too.
Ms. Grisales, thank you for reminding me.
I just wanted to point on action step C, or the third one, on the first goal. It says all board members to attend RCC forums. Is that a problem?
Mr. Slam and I have been discussing that.
Oh, that's all the secrecy going on there.
If that's the case, it may be that they would have to be advertised as a board meeting, because if the entire board is getting together and it's an issue involving board business.
Right, and when we were discussing it in finance committee, and we were trying to figure out kind of what to do, and then when I met as chair with Dr. Sainer and Dr. McLaughlin regarding the picking of the members of the community, right after you guys all volunteered or voluntold community members. I know that we specifically asked certain board members, right, to be part of it for that purpose, for them to come back and report. I think that's what Ms. Nutting was just doing. And so that's almost like that committee system again, right? Hey, you go there as a citizen and as a board member, and you come back to the full board and report back on what happens at those RCC forums. I think it would be great for all of us, or as much of us, to be there, but I think we need to be careful with kind of what that means, and do we have the time to advertise it as open? I mean, it's not such a big deal. We have I think you may have already the dates of what the meetings are coming to.
Not yet.
Okay, and so once we have those dates, is it really is it easy enough just to announce it as a public meeting and we can be there?
And might they be live streamed, in which case we could attend from our home and not violate the open public, right, where then just.
Right, but that would incorporate costs and money, right, and more.
Thank you, Ms. Grisales, for reminding us of that. Ms. Ruiz.
I think we have 3 current board members that are part of the Referendum Communications Committee, which means that at each meeting, 1 more board member can go without triggering the notice requirement. And if there is a meeting in September, October, November, I don't know if there will be a meeting in December.
Okay, I just want to make clarification. Are these the forums that the communication committees would be going to, or the planning meetings? Because the planning meetings are happening once a month, and then there are forums that committee will be doing individually or as groups.
So both. So let's say there are 3 planning meetings between now and December and 3 forums between now and December. That leaves 6 meetings where the other 6 board members can choose to attend. We would just need to coordinate, well, Ms. Ruiz would like to attend in October, but Mr. Miller would also like to attend in October, flip a coin, because the 2 of you cannot go without triggering the notice requirement, or they both will go, so that October meeting requires a notice.
I think the planning meeting, I'm just speaking for myself, should be consistent with the people who are there, because they build on what they're doing. And I think if you have an interchange of the board members who are in and out of that committee, I think you're going to lose some of that And I also think we've entrusted that committee with certain responsibilities, so I'm just kind of looking out for our community members who have made that commitment. But I think there'll be ample opportunities of things that are occurring through our referendum communications committee that the board could join in. You know, it's just, for example, the night out. You know, I know that there's, you know, we have a board member and a committee member who's going to be there at the night out, but another person could certainly join in that.
I think that's great. Okay, is there any area that anyone objects to or something that's missing from our list that needs to be addressed? Of course.
Just one quick thing on the discussion about the board staff. Oh, I'm sorry. Interrupt. All right. Well, I'll if you want to go first, then I'll jump in.
We need a table with a point so that I can see everyone.
Just quickly on anything about the staff board of relationships, I think it was already acknowledged that, you know, by Ms. Ruiz that there was a chain of command and everything. So talking about things like going to the schools, visiting, tours, all that stuff has to be coordinated through the superintendent.
Absolutely.
I realize I'm probably preaching to the choir, but I just wanted to point that out. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Crute, for making sure that we understand that. Ms. Phillips.
Is this one?
Yes.
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 Just isn't amplified, but it goes to the live stream.
So I would like to revisit number 2, because looking at that, I'm not sure that those are really specific action items. Like, as an example, it says equity, happy staff. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, I understand your explanation, but that doesn't say what you would be doing to make that happen.
Okay, Ms. Grisales.
Yes, and there are blanks that I left there if you were looking at the Google Doc. I think it's important that we finish it. Also, I combined the underlined aspect of number 2 and the star aspect into one, and I'm going to read it out loud and see if you guys agree with it, because I didn't know what was happening there. So I put identify and execute community engagement strategies to continue supporting the development of school community culture.
Mr. Miller.
I thought we changed it to be identify and execute community engagement strategies. That was the new one, and the other stuff above was not part of that.
Those bottom 3 things do look further down.
Yeah, I thought it was this
is another line, like this is another action to continue supporting the development of a community.
No, that is not what I understood. Mr.
Yeah.
Robles came up with the goal being identify and execute community engagement strategies.
yes,
of this.
instead of that.
And so I just added that. So you want to remove that last part?
No, that's
I was gonna put it here.
no, just leave it there
So
and
do we
erase
want
the.
it to say identify and execute community engagement strategies, stop, or add identifying execute community engagement strategies to continue supporting the development of a school community culture?
I think after strategies, it can be a period.
Yeah,
Okay.
period strategy.
Say that again.
Ms. Phillips said after strategies, it
Stop.
can be a period. Are we
Yes.
good with that? Can you give me some feedback, nods or shakes?
Can you put the 2 in front of that and cross out the other stuff on the top?
Okay, and Ms. Ruiz?
So identify and execute community engagement strategies. What I hear is like a community relations goal, and continue supporting the development of a community school, I hear as an equity goal. I see the way that you explained that Mr. Robles presented is different than what I heard. So what I'm now hearing is 4 goals instead of 3. And they can be included in one, right? Which I think is what Ms. Grisales tried to do and what you tried to do, and Ms. Phillips is saying, no, just this one needs to stand alone. For me, we are not a community school yet. We've made leaps and bounds to that. We're not there yet. So, and that is very important. Because the equity happy staff part is not identifying and executing community engagement strategies necessarily. It doesn't include making sure that we are doing everything we possibly can to attract and retain educators that look like our students. That's not identifying and executing community engagement strategies, but it is part of developing a community school.
Okay. Mr. Miller.
So what we discussed was that the development of a community school has become a district goal, and the district is executing that and continues to execute it. There's nothing for us to do at this point. We identified the community engagement strategies as something that we can do by having the community forums, sharing student achievement data, and research best practices for those reports. So I think that that community school piece has moved as a district goal.
Ms. Nutty.
Listening to the conversation, just kind of seems like this is a board goal that is supporting the district goal, which Ms. Peterson basically said sometimes that happens. So the way it's said, identify and execute community engagement strategies and supporting the development of school community instead of saying continuing.
Okay. Mr. Robles?
Yeah, I think what she said sounds better. I was thinking the identify and execute community engagement strategies should take the place of number 2, and number 2, based on what she said, could be combined into that to sort of end it. And then the sub-bullets that we have, but I definitely think the identify and execute community engagement strategies, to me, sounds more like a goal than just continuing to support the development of a community school. I know we had last year, and I'm not against what we had last year. Last year, that was the goal, to continue supporting the development of a community school. But I think the way I perceive it, it sort of gets superseded now by the identify and execute community engagement strategies.
Okay. Mr. Miller, then
So
Ms. Ruiz.
it could be a sub-bullet that we continue to figure out how to engage the public in presenting information about the development of the community school as it continues. So it becomes now a bullet of how we share that data with the community so they understand that these things are happening, that it's a district goal. So it could be a sub-bullet as part of that main bullet.
Ms. Ruiz?
If we can get confirmation from our administration that we are continuing to move in the direction of the development of a community school, then I would be happy with a district goal, because we will have a role in that. So if that's going to be a district goal, then we can move kind of that conversation to that.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we can either agree to leave identify and execute community engagement strategies, period, or combine. I'm personally fine either way.
Mr. Was your
Yeah,
hand up?
I was just gonna, I'm very, I think it's very valuable to have the whole thing about the staff and somehow connect it into one of the sub-bullets, but I'm not sure, like we were saying before, like the chain of command and what we could do about the staff, is it something that we really can do, or is it that we have to make sure that the administration is doing something that portrays how much we value the staff? So I don't know if the way we operate, I know down there is a staff relationships and board relationship, sort of that happy staff thing, which I like it. Moving it or connecting it somehow down there. I don't know if that equity is the same thing, or I don't know, Ms. Ruiz, what she was sharing with that, but.
Yeah, I'm stuck on the same point. How is staff under number 2 different than what we want to do with staff under number 3?
This was diverse staff. This was staff relationships.
And again, as
And so
we,
that can go into district, the
because
district
we
conversation.
don't control that. Okay, so
can we get a final
yeah, we
on
do
number
need,
2?
we need a final decision on the wording of the number 2 goal. Is it simply identify and execute community engagement strategies, or do we add on that part to continue supporting the development of a community school culture?
And like what Ms. Rios said, we are, if it's a district goal, we are supporting that already. So we shouldn't mention it again, I
Okay.
would think.
So I hear that you want to add the phrase at the end about the community school.
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
So
because
you-
if it's a
because
district
it's
goal,
unnecessary.
we're already supporting it. The
Okay.
only thing I would say is that if we have to have a communication strategy with our forums to make sure people understand that there's a lot of services available and send them back to the website or whatever, we can incorporate it as part of one of our communication strategies.
Okay, Ms. Phillips?
No, I forgot what I was gonna say. I was going to say, as Mr. Miller just said, not to include it as part of the goal itself, but to add it as one of the action items as part of the goal. So if you're I don't even remember what it was now, supporting yeah. So that, I think it kind of goes without saying that we would do that, but it can go in there as a bullet point. If you want to add it as, I don't know how specific you want to be as far as supporting it. If you're going to say supporting it by way of, reporting on different things at meetings or sharing whatever at meetings so that people are aware, that's fine too. And then also the last bullet that says task committee to research and present best practices. I feel like you need to have a timeline on that, because if this is supposed to be a goal for 22-23 and that's done in May of 23, it's kind of not really impactful. I feel like that probably needs to be done sooner rather than later so that you can start doing that in, I don't know, September, October meetings. I don't really feel like that is something that would take that long to investigate, but that's just my personal opinion.
My concern with that is the building project. Really, there's going to be a lot of information sharing in regards to that, forums. Could I suggest, and this is ultimately our decision, that research happens December through February with action taken March through June?
No, that's way too late.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that makes no sense.
Okay. Thank you for not sugarcoating. You don't want to hang out in my backyard. No worries. Mr. Robles.
I don't have an answer for that, so I'm not, unless somebody
But did you have a different comment?
I just had something else.
Go ahead.
Or you wanna
No, go. I'm going to lick my wounds. You go ahead.
No, I was just thinking about the comment that Ms. Reeves made about the community school district. So when do we achieve that, or how is that achieved? Whatever that definition of that is, because I just wanted to think about
Measurable.
if we can connect the supporting the continued development of community schools or a community school through sharing of student achievement data or something like that.
So I just want to come back to, since I committed to the fact that community school district will be a district goal, but way back when we talked about community schools, it takes a long time to develop that. We've made some really good beginnings. We have liaisons, and we've brought in some community organizations, and we've opened ourselves up as a resource to the greater community. But it's really just a beginning, because basically we're supposed to weave ourselves into the fabric of the community and the community into the fabric of the school. And, when you walk through the schools at night, there's nobody there, so we've got work to do, and and districts that are doing that, it's a multi-year. I don't know if you ever really achieve it. You keep making progress towards it, but I would see it remaining, I would hope it would remain a district goal for the years to come.
Okay.
And then it'd be up to me to say, here's the progress we made on it this year, over and above what we did the year before.
No, that's great. That's great to help understand. So yeah, with that said, and I think it makes total sense, what you just shared, that and again, we had somewhat of that last year, which it's good that we're continuing to have it, and I think we should continue to have it from here on out for a while, but then I would like to tie it to something, not just saying generally we support the continual development of a community school, because I want us to do something about it, not just saying that we're supporting it.
Provide
general,
resources
broad
and
terms.
support for programming. That's right? That is what we do, right? Mr. Miller.
I think if we look for opportunities of growth in that area that we could suggest to the school district, because I know there's a situation now with the kids that are going to the summer rec program where they don't have a facility. In the past, they used to go to North Dover, and they would use the North Dover gym if it was raining, but they had the whole outside piece where recreation could be held, and they could use the school to have their program. So that's things like that as they come up, we should provide feedback to the superintendent to see, is this an opportunity for us to further engage the community and bring something into the school district, because you can also include the fact that if you have all of these kids coming, we also have the free food. So now the rec program doesn't have to buy food. We partner with the town to do that.
Well, yeah, where they're food sponsors. So that's
happened.
another area of community school that we did this last year and continued this
Oh, yeah,
year.
you're already giving it
So
to-
we're the summer meal program
Okay.
for the Waterworks program.
Oh,
And
okay.
just as an aside, I know it's not, but just give you a quick up. Mr. Bennett and I talked today about finding an alternate site for high heat because the plan of the town this year was to use the community
Father
center, but
Connolly,
unfortunately,
it's been condemned.
It's not inhabitable.
Okay.
Dr.
Ms.
Sanders.
Ruiz and then Ms. Mendez. And Ms. Nutting, was your hand up as well? Okay, sorry. Ms. Ruiz.
So to piggyback a little bit on what Mr.
Microphone.
Robles, thank you, sorry folks.
Takes a
To
village.
piggyback a little bit on what Mr. Robles was suggesting, support the continued development of community school by attending the New Jersey School Boards Association workshop offerings on community school development. I know that there's at least one offering for October, and there's always offerings throughout the year. I know when I choose my training, I often go to stuff on equity, stuff on curriculum, and stuff on finance, equity, because I love the topic, and finance and curriculum, because I need to learn about the topic. So if we include in our goals kind of a guide for our training, right? We all have to do the basics board governance. And if we are looking to become a certified board, we're going to have to go to more trainings. That's part of it. So we can focus that training because I think what I'm hearing is we're not exactly even sure how to support a community school. Maybe we're not even sure what a community school is. I know what my idea of it is, and I'm thinking of a school in Newark, right? But I don't know what everyone else's idea of it is. So maybe by filling in that blank with trainings and Mr. Miller's suggestion of exploring needs in the community and seeing and referring them to the superintendent to see how, if our school district can meet the need.
I like the word communicating needs from the community to the board. Ms. Mendez, right? Next.
Yes. So I think Mr. Reed said that is a great idea. And when I hear Mr. Miller suggesting, 'cause that was a hot button issue, right, on social media, the rec center and whatnot. But that is, so we're supporting the continued development of a community school, right, by one, participating in the trainings, right, so we can all learn actually what the heck a community school is. And then, right, and piggybacking off what Mr. Miller suggested, right, that's also included in connecting to the community and hosting the community forums. So those are two other ways that we are supporting the development of a community school.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mendez, for that comment. This looks great. We're still stuck with, I'm going back to Ms. Phillips, I think it was Ms. Phillips, comment regarding the time frame of the research and execution part of community engagement strategies.
Well,
So-
no,
I'm sorry.
It was to that piece of it, but my point was, it says to research and present best practices such as weekly or monthly reports. My comment is the timeline on when the research and presentation needs to be done.
Okay.
Because you can't say something to implement, you don't even know what you're talking about. So my comment was, you have to, when would the research have to be presented by?
Okay, do we have suggestions for that, Mr. Miller?
So are we meeting, is community relations meeting in August or not?
If you'd like, we can.
Well, what I'm saying is that we should meet in August to start talking about and collecting strategies now.
Okay.
And then by a September meeting, at least report out where we are with any suggestions we might have. It may take another month to finalize it where everybody agrees, so that October we may have something. But a lot of it may it may take a couple iterations, but I think we could get it done in the fall.
I'm fine with that. And yes, we can meet in August to discuss it.
I also think sharing resources, right? Ms. Phillips finds an article about strategy A, you find an article, Mr. Miller, about strategy B. Mr. Robles finds an article about sharing it with the board, and then preparing to have a discussion at the board table, right? We certainly don't want to read that together at a board meeting,
Right.
but we could have a discussion about which of those 4 new strategies would work best
Okay.
in our community.
Dr. Stainer, if I may.
Of course.
I don't know when is the best time to have this conversation, but I know earlier we talked about restructuring the Community Relations Committee and what they're actually going to be doing. So when are we going to have that conversation?
That's an excellent question as well. I think a good time for that is January, when committee assignments are being made.
So we'll
right?
keep it as is for now, and then
Deciding in January to hash it out, decide, keep it, don't keep it. If we keep it, what does it look like? What are their specific goals?
But is that too late? Have we lost half of the school year by then? When the Community Relations Committee could be doing a bunch of work from September to December?
I just, on that, because
Go ahead, and then Mr. Miller.
so the board started a conversation on committee restructuring at, was it the last meeting or the meeting before last? At a recent meeting, we had a conversation about restructuring the committees. Actually, I think it's at both 2 meetings, because it was part of the community forum feedback. So at the past 2 meetings, we've discussed committee restructuring. And one of the explorations we have on the table is opening up the policy committee. So we've started the conversation. Under old business or new business, at a future meeting, we could add to that and exploring the restructuring of the Community Relations Committee. So the conversations don't have to wait until January, but the decision may wait till January, maybe not. If the Community Relations Committee is willing and the board is, as a whole, is willing to switch it at the next meeting, it can be done at the next meeting. But what I want to know is if we're all in agreement. We had agreed to task a committee, and I'm hearing the community relation, at least 2 members of the Community Relations Committee volunteer to be the committee, tasked to research and present best practices by October. Is that correct? Third member?
I was just saying no to Scott, but I'm just kidding. No.
Right, they're volunteering us.
And I know Scott was going to say something, but I think I'm understanding it differently, that statement from what we're talking about now with the community relations. So I don't know, Scott, if you want to share what you were going to say before I go into.
Well,
Yeah.
what I was going to say is that I never agreed with us going to all those meetings because I didn't think it was going to produce anything. I only see one meeting that's important to go to, and that's the Mine Hill Board of Education meeting, because you establish a rapport with members of that board and having conversations after the meeting and whatnot. But hearing what they're doing, I think that's important. But the other meetings, I don't think that people going to them reporting, it's not something that's actionable. So, but I do think that what we did before as a committee was talk about things that we're hearing in the committee and be able to report it back to the superintendent, some things that he may not be aware of. I think that was important because there were lots of times that when we did meet, we said, well, we heard all of these things that are going on, and just getting a better understanding of how we can make sure that information comes forward, especially opportunities for community school and all of that could be something that we have the ear of the community, but the committee members themselves could send suggestions of things that they heard that we should be looking at.
I don't disagree with that, but we should all be doing that, right? If I'm standing on my corner with my 4 neighbors and they bring up an issue with I don't know what, I should be, and if that's an issue that affects multiple people in the district, I should be reporting that to Dr. McLaughlin, whether or not I'm on that committee or not. So that should be happening anyway.
Dr.
But
Sainer.
again, we're not deciding. I think the question on the table right now is, are we tasking the existing Community Relations Committee with this research piece by October? Is that something we agree with?
So
And can I just have a point of order?
Okay, yes. you
So
can
we're
go
moving into a conversations about the Community Relations Committee, which is not on the agenda. The goals are on the agenda, so I just wanted to bring us back to that.
Yes, and Mr. Robles, you've been waiting, thank you.
Yeah, so that goal of tasking whichever committee, I know we're talking about the community relations right now, which is fine, but is it to research and present best practices about community engagement, or is it about something else?
That's what I understand,
Okay.
right? So we had a forum. It had successes and things to do
Mhm.
differently, I think. Are there other things that we could be doing? Are there things that other districts are doing that might work in our district that we should attempt in addition to the things we're already doing?
Got
That's
it.
what I understand.
Okay.
Is that what everybody else understands?
Well, what I'm confused is the weekly and monthly reports. Is that related?
That was an
That's just an
example
example.
of a best, and I don't think that should actually go in the goal.
No, wait, that's why it's in parentheses.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if
What
it's
is a
in
best practice?
Right, but what
can-
are
we
these
can erase
things
it.
that other districts are doing that may help us to engage and share information with our community?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So now that I get that understanding, so now I'm just gonna go back though to the comment made earlier about restructuring, just so I understand what that actually means too, because is it, when we say restructuring, we're talking about changing people that are in the communities, or we're changing the actual role of that
I
committee?
think the question that we are not discussing tonight, but we could discuss under new business at a different meeting, is whether or not the Community Relations Committee should exist, and if it does exist, how might it change, or does it not change? Do we continue the way that with the structure and expectations that we have now?
Because I thought the committees themselves decided what they were, like, the community relations, we met and we talked about what we were gonna do as a committee.
That is right, the board tasks each committee with their tasks, their focus, right? The Finance and Facilities Committee, right, manages the finance, talks about contracts, the use of facilities, curriculum, is responsible for those initial discussions on new or revised curricula and programmatic elements, right? So that is a board task, right? That is, I didn't express that well, but that is the board directs the committees.
So then the
on-
committees come up with goals of how they're gonna execute that task, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may,
Okay, Ms. Phillips.
to a certain extent, because when we met to establish like the goals for the Community Relations Committee, the reason that we even discussed any of us attending like VG meetings or anything like that was because that was a board goal. That was not necessarily a goal that we as a committee set. We set that because that was a board goal that was pretty much,
Assigned to the
for a better
committee.
word, handed to us. This is something that we have to do. Not necessarily something that I personally would have said this is a goal. So they kind of go hand in hand. That one in particular was really a board goal that had been established that we just had to fulfill.
And this is, to Ms. Phillips's point, right, we're setting board goals in July. We will have new board members in January that are gonna walk in and go, you wanna do what? You know, that's just, it's the weird timing of our board tenure with our school year, I guess. Ms. Grisales.
And because of that, I know that I think last year we had this experience where our goals were too broad and not very measurable, and we struggled a little bit, I think, with meeting them and showing what we have met because they were not too measurable. So I think going along the lines of what Ms. Phillips was saying, right, if we look at number 2, a lot of our action steps are not, they're very broad and not very measurable. So like I put on mine, not on Carol's, right, but conduct that, it says community forums for the second spot or the second task. For the second action step. Community forums with what purpose and how many? Right, and I think that if maybe Ms. Phillips can talk about, right, the experience of getting all this forum up, right? Was it worth it? Well, and I've heard that it was, but how many are we willing to do, and with what focus? And I think the more specific we are, then the easier these goals are for us to accomplish, and also keep ourselves accountable for them.
Thank you, Ms. Grisales, for reminding us of SMART. Ms. Phillips, would you like to weigh in? You don't have to.
Sure.
Okay.
As far as the logistics of it and the planning on the back end, I mean, it's a lot. It's not something that's unsurmountable. I think 2 times a year is reasonable, but I also think that limiting it to a specific topic, the feedback that I got from that when it was discussed, like within the public, was, so you're not gonna let me say what I wanna say, you're gonna tell me to come here and listen to you talk about what being a board member means. That's not really what I wanna hear. So I don't know that saying we're going to have a community forum to talk about what it means to be a board member, I personally don't think that would be particularly impactful. I don't think that many people would come. I don't, you know, people were annoyed that they were under the impression that we weren't going to let them talk about the referendum. When we had that forum, we didn't limit any topic. Any topic anybody wanted to bring up was fine, and I think that was the best. I don't know that makes the most sense to say we're going to have a forum and talk about just, I mean, if we said we were going to talk about just the referendum, they would probably be good with that. But to limit it to other things, I don't, the feedback that I got was that that's not really what people want. They want to be able to address what they want to address in an open forum and get the answers that they get, if not in that moment, within a reasonable period of time.
Right. Ms. Ruiz and then Ms. Mendez.
So then I propose that we do have 2 community forums, again, potentially coordinated by the Community Relations Committee, or as of the full board. And one on a topic, what does the board do? Why can you only talk for 3 minutes? How can you become a board member? How much money do you get paid? All that good stuff. And then the other, I actually didn't see it or even, I don't know that it was recorded. Yeah, I did, right. That was on purpose, right? Yeah, we wanted it to be open and no one to feel pressured, I think. So, but what I'm hearing was that it was great, that people want, a set of time where they can tell you, this is my question, this is what I don't like, and hopefully there was some of this is what I do like. But I liked, it wasn't what I thought would happen, but it sounded like it was good. So if we do one, let us hear your concerns and we'll bring it back. I'm nervous about promising answers and venting, right? We are not the administration. We, the Board of Ed members. Ms. Phillips has a connection to many community members. Mr. Miller does as well. I imagine Mr. Robles does too through his volunteer work, but depending on the board member and the personality, and the people that show up, it could veer off into something that is not supporting student achievement, right? If I come to the meeting and just complain about Mr. Miller the whole time, how does that, and sorry to pick on you, you're right
That's
here.
okay.
I pick on you all the time. You're used to it.
No problem.
Nobody wants to hang out in my backyard, okay? Let's worry about my mental health right now.
So that's, I think it went really well. Or at least I heard that it went really well. But I'm nervous about.
I'm hearing you're rambling a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you. I'm hearing that you have some concerns about how it might go and how we might prevent a negative experience from that turning from a positive into a negative. Dr. McLaughlin has something to say, but Ms. Mendez is waiting.
I will yield to Dr. McLaughlin as long as I can have the floor after.
Thank you. Yes.
So I just wanted to, and I didn't ask this clarification last year, I should have. So one of the things that I know that I've tried to do each year, and had 2 this year, is to hold community forums. So I guess I didn't ask the question last year, what distinguishes the forums that I would host versus the board hosting? So when I've done community forums, at which board members have attended, then it's always an open, I give a little bit of information, but it's an open agenda. People can bring up their concerns and then they get follow-up. If the board is doing the same thing, I'm just wondering, the board can certainly say, keep doing forums and we'll keep doing forums. I'm just wondering what the difference is.
Okay, Ms. Mendez.
I have a couple things to say. So bear with me because sometimes my thoughts move faster than my lips. So, first of all, when I think about community forums, I would love for them to happen more than 2 times per year. Obviously, logistically, and like Ms. Phillips was saying on the back end, that's a lot of work. So I get 2 times per year. So if we did only do it 2 times per year, I'm hoping we can do one in the beginning and then one sometime after January. And when I think about what Ms. Ruiz was saying about her concerns over what folks might bring up at these community forums, that's the purpose of the community forums. We cannot dictate what folks are gonna say, and I also understand that we are not the administration, right? So there are many things that we can't speak to without speaking to the administration first. But I think that our community sees us as the body that oversees the administration, and they want to be able to express their concerns to us, even though we might not be able to do anything about it, but share that information with Dr. McLaughlin. And that's what the community forum is for. And we just share with those folks, hey, you know, we don't have an answer for you. We're gonna have to, you know, send it over to Dr. McLaughlin, but we'll get back to you with some sort of an answer. That's the point.
Ms. Grisales.
I think that we are public officials for a reason, right? We chose, I hope that each of us chose to volunteer to this paid, non-paid job for a purpose, right? Our heart is here, right? And we bring our heart to the table. And as public officials, we should feel comfortable in responding to our people who elected us, our community. And so I think that allowing the difference between, let's say, the board forums versus Dr. McLaughlin's forums is that it's 2 different audiences, right? It's you as the superintendent and us as the people who oversee you, right? I think it's 2 different avenues, and then that way maybe we could have 4 forums in the year when you do 2 and we do 2, right? I also think we need to be comfortable, and I hope that Ms. Ruiz's comment is not about not having trust in us responding to what we need to and how we need to respond, but perhaps giving us a clue about if we don't feel comfortable, then let's go to some training. Let's talk about what we can do. Let's have some responses in regards like scripts or not that we're going to be, you know, robotic with scripts, but an idea of talking points if we're nervous about a certain area, right? Let's plan to what could potentially be asked. And if we don't know, we don't know. We are also not, you know, know-it-alls in every area.
One comment, Mr. Miller. My concern was it's an inefficient process to have a community forum with the public and then have to bring all the questions. And so this speaks a little bit to your point, Ms. Grisales, that we should feel comfortable answering some of, not all, but some of those questions. But it seems to me like a more efficient process if the superintendent and 4 or less board members are sitting there. And then when someone from the public asks a question, they're not always, but most likely going to get an immediate response, as opposed to Ms. Phillips bringing it back, having to wait 3 weeks until the next regular session to get that question answered. So I see pros and cons.
Well, I totally agree with what Ms. Mendez said and what Ms. Grisales said. It was different. And there were a lot of questions that I could answer. I was sweating bullets. And there was a lot of things we couldn't answer, but just they wanted to know they were being heard, okay? And so the fact that we had so many questions, we answered a lot of questions with information that's already public knowledge, and they felt more comfortable, I think, in the dialogue. And I think that might have been the difference, where some people might feel intimidated talking to the superintendent. I don't know why, because we tell people, well, if you have a problem and it doesn't work out with the building principal, call the superintendent. They don't feel comfortable doing that. It's like they're afraid to do that. Nothing, you know, against you. It's just that sometimes people want to have a conversation with people in a more relaxed forum. So, but I've been to the forums with Dr. McLaughlin, and they've been great. And he's given a lot of good information. So if people would go to those, you know, obviously they're going to get the most out of those, but some people they may prefer something different.
Dr. Singh?
Mm-hmm. And then Mr. Robles.
After you.
Thank you. I guess the way I envision the community forums is potentially like one person from each committee at the forum, right? So one person from policy, one person from curriculum, one person from finance. But I like the idea of someone from the administration being there, but them not being kind of like the forefront, just someone that we can refer to when a question is asked, kind of a thing. But then I also agree with Mr. Miller when he's like, folks might not wanna, they don't wanna deal with you. You know what I mean? They'd rather talk to us only. So it's like, what do you do? How do you balance that?
Mr. Robles.
Yeah, I think the experience we had, and I also participated in one of the forums a while back, but with the parents, there seems to be a little bit more when we do it from the administration side, like more formality to it. You have to log it, pre-register. You have to sometimes fill out a form or something. I don't know if we did that. I thought we did that a while back. But if we do, I don't think there's any harm. If your schedule allows, if our board schedule allows to do more opportunities for the community to communicate with us, there's no harm in that. I think there's value to people that we know, that we communicate in the community. When they connect, they relate to us because they're engaged with us in the community, different from just seeing the role of the administrators overseeing the school, managing the school. So I'm in favor of continuing both. I think it makes sense. And if we can, which I think worked out really well when we provided the questions to you, you addressed them in the next board meeting or 2 meetings after that. That's really, I think, what the people are looking for versus just saying questions and then never getting an answer, which a lot of the times in the past, that's what used to happen, perhaps. So I think the way that people engaged in our community forum was great, and I think we should just continue doing it the same way. And also the translation, which I know we have a resource now to translate, which a lot of people were able to express their comments in Spanish or type them in Spanish, and we were able to communicate that as well. I think that's very valuable too.
Ms. Grisel.
I also want to offer that I don't think this should be, and obviously I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but it may not only be part of the Community Relations Committee, right? And I think we said this in the past, but I think it should be something that the whole board engages in, right? Because it is a lot of work. So I think if we do decide, and please remember that we have to be more specific in our goals, and time is running, so let's go. We still have public comment, I believe, in our agenda. But it is important for us to also share that tasks, right? It's shared leadership, what we've always talked about. So it's not only the Community Relations Committee. I don't want it to fall only on that committee when it's a huge task if we're going to talk about, even if it's 2. So I think asking if you guys do need help, that all of us are, hey, let's help out, assign me this or give me that, so that way it doesn't fall on a few people only.
Ms. Nutty.
I think Ms. Mendez's suggestion of a board member from each committee, I think that would make it a definite, everyone's involved, and you can rotate from each committee also for the meetings.
Thank you.
Dr. Oh,
Sorry. Mr. Miller, do you still have a
Yeah,
comment?
well, I think community relations doesn't have any job then, and that's what it keeps coming back to. And I think there needs to be a focus on it. And if we keep saying, well, it's too much for them to do, and we're going to take it away, you're not giving us anything. Everything keeps being taken away. And I think there's important work to be done there to be focused on, because you just can't spread it across everybody. I mean, I agree that other people can participate, and it doesn't have to just be them, but what is it that we're doing then? It's going to be community relations as a whole, the board then.
Dr. Sainer, if I may.
I think Ms. Ruiz had is that true? Yeah, Ms. Ruiz, then Ms. Mendez.
So I have 2 proposals. One, that this one that I'm starring is be worded as the Community Relations Committee, with support from the full board, will coordinate 2 community forums in the 2022-2023 school year. One completely general, the other with the superintendent present as well. I'm gonna leave on specific topic out because it sounds like we didn't want to do that. And all the kind of details whether it's going to be reps from the specific committee, whether it's going to be in September and again in May, like all that we can do via the Google shared doc. And when we approve these goals at the next meeting, that we read them into the record with the agreed upon edits. And of course, if we don't agree on these edits via a Google Doc, then we will have that meeting to agree on those, you know, a 1 hour community forum at East Dover in May. We can have that discussion. Just thinking again on the time for today, I don't know if there's anyone that's so broad still that maybe needs a little more discussion now, but at least that one, I think we have most of the skeleton, and we can add a little meat at the actual meeting when we approve the goals.
So when I heard Mr. Miller say, what are we going to do? What is the Community Relations Committee going to have? I think that one of the most important tasks under that is the research and presenting the best practices and ways to engage the community, right? So I'm hoping, in my idea, this might be totally off, but the community forums is just one of the ways we're going to engage the community, right? I'm hoping that the Community Relations Committee comes up with other ways beyond the community forums for us to engage the community. So I think that's an important task for that committee. And then I just want to say thank you so much to Mr. Ruiz for trooping it out in heels all night at that board. And then I'm on the verge of needing a bio break, so I don't know how we want to handle that. If we move on and we're going to get to public comment, I'm good, but if not, I need a bio break.
Can I get a straw poll? Are we ready to tentatively say that we've, can I just get a thumbs up? Are we pretty much done with these and we're ready to move on to public comment and end the meeting? Or thumbs down, we need to, there are items up there that I need to discuss. So thumbs up, we're ready to move on. Thumbs down, we need a bathroom break. Thumbs down, there's more to do. I'm
Yeah, I think we
delirious.
need more to do.
Okay, leave them up. I got it, like, everybody. Miss Phillips, that's the wrong finger.
No,
It was the pointer finger. I'm sorry. I'm delirious.
No, I'm good to move on, personally.
Okay, the problem is that there are board members who feel like there is more to discuss. So we're gonna, the bathrooms are upstairs and here. Are there downstairs bathrooms as well?
Yes.
Downstairs bathrooms. So divide and conquer. We're gonna be back we're gonna take a 7-minute recess, if not less, if people can take care of their Thank you very much. Okay, it's 8:43. We are back in regular session. And we have more discussion regarding the board goals. Ms. Grisales?
Yes, I just wanted to really quickly, item goal 1, we still should decide something more specific regarding active forums. We also have action step 2A on board members connecting to community. I think that's not a very smart goal, right? There isn't a specific how are we connecting. And then in 2D, the same sharing student achievement data, who's sharing, how often. And those are the 3 areas that I think we're missing. If anyone sees anything that could be more specific, so that way it's more measurable, it would help us in the long run, based on our last year's experience.
Okay, so let's look at 1A.
Dr. Sainer, sorry.
Ms. Ruiz?
Just before we do what Ms. Grisales has asked us to do, I just want to read number 1. I made a few edits that I think, which is a little different than what's up on the board. The Dover Board of Education commits to sharing accurate information about our students' needs for more space and working to pass the December 22 referendum, as well as continuing to support the construction of the necessary new buildings. My edits were just grammatical, but I just want to make sure that that's our goal. And on number 1, the community forums, as I am understanding with regard to the referendum, are the community forums that the Referendum Communications Committee is hosting. So I think A was there as part of our discussion, but I think should actually be deleted because we are committing to attending the community forums that RCC is coordinating and coordinating. The question that I still have is, are we coordinating with each other to make sure there isn't quorum, or are we making sure there's public notice for those?
Okay, so what I hear that A no longer belongs under here because it is the Referendum Communications Committee that's doing that. That is my understanding. And that C is in effect, and we will coordinate it so that we don't have to trigger the Open Public Meetings Act notification piece, so that additional board members will attend as just observers, right, of the forums. Is that everyone's understanding of 1A and 1C? Okay, so Ms. Grisales, you can go ahead and make those edits.
Oops. Just on, there you go.
Okay. Okay, and then under 2A, I don't think that was an actual, but please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that was an actual goal. It was just like kind of during the brainstorming process. And the things we are doing, B, C, D, and E, are ways to connect to the community.
But it's part of the strategies, community engagement strategies, meaning how we're connecting to the community.
So what are you saying, Mr. Miller? I guess.
That first bullet goes, or are you saying no?
I think we were trying to identify areas in which they're gonna look for strategies that help us do these.
Okay. Yeah, but I don't think that should be one of the sub-bullets. The
But I
board.
think it's redundant, right? We're identifying and executing community
Yeah,
engagement
I agree with that,
excuse me,
yeah.
one person at a time, please. And, okay, it's hard to read off of this when you mess with the formatting. So I think A is covered under the goal of identifying and executing community engagement strategies. And then sharing student, we're on 2D now. Sharing student achievement data, at least, I'm gonna assume that's per year. But how many times? And again, that's, I hate to make this discussion more convoluted, but right, the sharing of district student achievement data is the responsibility of the administration. So what does that look like to me as a board? What am I as a board member doing in terms of that? Ms. Nutting and Ms. Ruiz.
It looks like the only thing that we can technically do with, if you want to really keep that on there, is to make sure that we bring it up twice in our year of our board to say, hey, you guys, we didn't get that report yet. like just a friendly reminder, but
But
other
I
than
can build
that,
it into the district goal. So I'll
But-
have a goal on student achievement, and I could put one of the action steps about how many times we'll present. So
So
I
then-
can commit to that.
So that comes off of our plate. We are just supporting the district goal of reporting student achievement a certain number of times per year. Ms. Ruiz, then Mr. Robles, was your hand up? Okay, Ms. Ruiz and then Mr. Robles, and then Ms. Viveras.
Ms. Peterson explained that with regard to student achievement, our job as board members was to identify the goal. Do we want to increase Dover High School graduation? Do we want to increase school attendance? Do we want to increase X? We identify that goal. This is what the board wants to increase in terms of student achievement. Then it is the district's job to determine how to do it and to report on what they are doing to achieve that goal. So student achievement is very broad, and if we don't identify something, you know, Dr. McLaughlin could report on the 100 factors that he identifies for student achievement, or 3. He could say, here's attendance, here is graduation rates, here extracurricular activity. But we haven't agreed on what it is exactly we're looking for, and maybe we don't have to, right? If we are saying we trust the administration to report on it as often as they wish and they choose what to report on, fine. I think it is more, we put a finer point if we say, and I'll, you know, what I would like, you know, how are we increasing our students' performance on the SAT, improving? How are we improving our graduation rate, right? Something specific, or that we want to see an improvement, both the documentation, right? How has it improved, if it hasn't improved in the past 10 years, and what are we doing to improve some more?
I agree, but I think there's a fine point there that I think I heard Ms. Peterson say, and that this isn't us deciding. My pet project is SAT or reading or math, right? It's not that. It's us as a board in conjunction with the district, right? They hold all the data. They know where the biggest needs are that we should be addressing in the upcoming year. We know that there are multiple areas, right? But I think as the education professionals, it's our district administration that should be in conjunction with us when we talk about district goals, decide on what is, right, we want student achievement in every area. But we can only focus on a limited amount of everything in a given year. So I think we have to work collaboratively with our administration to do that. Hang on, it was Mr. Robles, then Ms. Viveros.
Yeah, so I think, I agree with what you said, but I do think, like, because there's data that could be shared that people will say, well, I don't care about that. That's not relevant to what we want to know. And we've been hearing a lot over the years about graduation rates, about other specific areas that I think are very top of mind for our community. So I think we should definitely collaborate, but we should include it once the district has those areas identified that they feel are the top priorities to share, that we agree upon that. And we bring that into our goal to share those areas that they identify.
I'm just gonna say, I don't think you need to bring it into your goal, because the board needs to approve the district goals. So
Okay.
if the district goal doesn't contain what the board feels it should, there's an opportunity there to build it into the district goal, rather than making a board goal to say what the district goal needs to be. You know, we can make sure that the district goal includes that.
I do think we do, thank you for that. I do think we should have, like, in that particular area, like those talking points and those specific items ready for us when we have the community forums. Because a lot of the times those questions come up and we just, you know, Scott did a great job answering some of those things, but if somebody asks, what is our graduation rate? And we have that already as part of the metrics that have been shared, we should have it available as talking points for us to, whenever we have a community forum, and that's the way I perceive sharing district achievement, is that it's hand-ready whenever somebody's asking about it.
Sure,
As
and
opposed to,
you would have all of that available in the board packet, right? So if for example, you mentioned graduation rates, which will be reported on in September, right? So that information would then be available in the September board packet, right, for you to share. So you would all know where that is. That might be something to discuss, right? Whether you want to kind of pre-select important information from presentations to have that, you know, on the tip of your tongue as you're answering those community questions. Ms. Viveros.
I just have a comment in regards to our item number 2, the community forums as a board. I hope we're not pushing Dr. McLaughlin to shy away from his personal community forums, because I've been in attendance as a parent, and I think they've been very productive. So I don't want us to push that agenda totally to the side.
Do we want to modify as it is one general, one with the superintendent to ensure that we're not doing that? I'm sorry, I was under the understanding, or is that part of what the Community Relations Committee will decide?
Dr. Sainer, if I may.
Yes.
I think that the original idea behind that was these two, although one will include the superintendent, these two are in addition to the superintendent's own forum.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with you. I think that that's important too. So.
And so, I saw a lot of nods, so could that, Ms. Grisales, thank you, can that make it into 2B? Okay, so we've, 2A is going to disappear, am I correct? Okay, so if someone, Ms. Ruiz, if you're in there as well. And then, we're still stuck on 2D, sharing district.
Sorry, Dr. Sainer. So 2, identify and execute community engagement strategies. A, board members connecting to community.
No,
How?
that's going away.
So
That-
A
that's
is just
because we
deleted.
are doing that
Okay.
through the community forums, through the identifying best practices, through sharing student achievement data. Okay.
Except it sounded to me like sharing student achievement data is now going to be part of a district goal.
So yes, we have too many cooks in this restaurant. Okay, so then what I'm hearing now is that we're going to delete C, because that is going to happen as a part of a district goal, which we are obligated to support. And I'm seeing a lot of nods there. So C can also be deleted. Okay. And it just went away. Perfect. So, are there any other, if there's wordsmithing issues, suggest those. But are there any big idea issues? Ms. Grisales brought up that last year we didn't quite finalize them, and it was very difficult to finalize them without the entire board. So this is our chance as an entire board. And I would like to, I understand that wordsmithing might still have to happen, but I don't want to, we're here now, we're engaged, we're interested, we've been talking about this. I would like to finish this before we leave so that we can come back and approve these at our August meeting.
Dr. Sainer.
Ms. Viveros and then Ms. Grisales.
Is goal number 3, item C or step C, isn't that similar to another one we have?
1 second, sorry.
Where did it go? Oh, goal 2, item B, or step B, or action B, or whatever. we're calling it.
When we talked about this one, I thought we decided that one of the items was that, was it in relation? No, this was D, right? We talked about everybody attending their own training, so I'm also confused about what C is.
Yes, C is the one I'm
D is the one that I think we're talking about, which is everybody attends a NJSBA training in the area that they feel they need training in. Can anybody speak to C? Remember what our discussion was?
Dr. Sainer, if I may, I just think it was a matter of how it was translated from the board to the doc. I think performance and training, and then the bullet point under that was we're gonna attend the NJSBA training and report back. So that was the bullet point.
So it's the same thing.
So exactly. Yeah.
So I'm
Sorry.
hearing that we're combining?
Well, essentially, yeah, one of them needs to be deleted.
Just take C out.
C out.
Okay. Dr. McGluck, I guess you had lost track.
Goal 3, I just know the goal says improve board operations and become a New Jersey School Board Certified Board, but there isn't a action item under that specifies applying
How to do it.
for being a certified board.
So
Or a
that's-
timeline.
I'm bringing that up. NJ Certified Board, that is a very arduous, I've talked to Ms. Peterson about that. That many of us have brought that up. board certification. It's quite an extensive process that I don't feel like we can give it the time that we deserve. So really quickly, to earn board certification, we have to, as a board, earn 16 credits of group training within a 4-year period. So I believe that means 16 times. Ms. Peterson, like an example of credit would be Ms. Peterson coming in and doing a training on
Tonight counts, by the way.
tonight. So tonight,
On
yes,
CUSAC.
thank you. Participate in at least one full-day retreat or an equivalent. Complete an NJSBA policy wellness check to ensure that the board's policy manual is current. Complete an analysis of the district's negotiated teachers contract by NJSBA's legal and labor relations staff. Demonstrate commitment to continuous improvement through completion of the annual board self-eval. We did that. Comply with current mandatory training requirements for each board member and satisfy the governance portion of the New Jersey Department of Education monitoring process. And then there's a little bit more. If the credits are not earned within 4 years, those from the first year will be dropped and credits from year 5 will be added. To earn credits, attendance at training must include 7 members of a 9-member board. The superintendent must also participate in training, and credits will be maintained as long as the composition of the board remains the same, or if the board experiences less than a 1/3 turnover in membership. My only point is that's a lot.
Dr. Sainer, if I may.
Yes.
Holy crap, that is a lot. So maybe we can just wordsmith it again and say we can work towards becoming a certified board as opposed to becoming a certified board.
What about 2 trainings? What if we identify and between December and June have Ms. Peterson come in and do 2 trainings, which would, get us, that's 2 of the 16 that we need over the next 4-year period.
I mean, I'm totally down for that.
That seems
yeah.
doable with the referendum and in that 6 month, so once every 3rd meeting, we have a training.
So
Mr.
we
Miller?
just shorten it to improve board operations and just have the bullets. Take out the participate. I wouldn't.
That would be
do
an
that
action
as well.
step.
Just improve board operations and put anything that we want in bullets.
Mr. Robles?
So, based on what you said, the trainings, if we do 2 a year, even in
It's
4
not
years,
enough.
we never get to 16.
Right, I was suggesting 2 this year because we have the referendum, right? Then we would have to do 5 a couple years to get that done. So, yes,
So if we have another turnover and people leave the
we
board,
might have to
then
start over again. Yes.
Mm.
So that is, where we are right now with that referendum hanging over us, I think that's really hard.
Dr. Singh?
Yes.
Then I would suggest improve board operations by participating in at least one Dover Board of Education focused group training, like Charlene comes to us, not that we go to them, this year. So that way, it's only one. We're taking out the school board certified board approval, but at least are committing to when I think we did the policy committee did a policy specific one with Charlene. We've done some finance specific ones with Mr. Slam, Ms.
Thank you,
Peterson,
Ms.
Charlene.
Ruiz.
So
what I think, and I'm sorry.
no, that's
but,
okay. Go ahead.
I think what works better is to improve board operations, be the
Period.
goal, and one of the sub-points is we have Ms. Peterson come in and do one whole board training in this next year. I'm seeing nods for that one.
Mhm.
Any comments or other discussion? Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No.
Can I have, what benefits do we get of becoming a certified board?
I think it shows our like, do we get money? Do we get, we probably get a certificate.
Oh, you get a plaque.
You get a plaque, yes. I think it shows our dedication to being, I think it shows us and our community, our dedication to being the very best, well-trained board that we can be. We're not just up here, winging it every 3rd Tuesday. We are committed to doing our jobs to the best of our ability, using the resources of NJSBA. Okay, I see no other comments. Is it time to move to the public, I almost forgot, the public portion of this meeting? Okay, so I am, unless there's an objection, I'm giving you a lot of wait time. I'm gonna move to, okay, I'm gonna move to the public, Mr. Miller.
I didn't think we were doing D.
My computer's loaded.
That's, I think, oh no.
What number?
We've replaced that with one training by Ms. Peterson. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Ms. Grisales, are you gonna edit?
I
Or
was
you want
waiting
me
to see if
edit?
you
Yeah.
started it,
Okay.
so go
Sorry
ahead.
to,
Okay.
You started it, so go.
all right, I'll do that.
The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters. To ensure fair and orderly expression of such comment, each statement shall be held to a time period of 3 minutes. Public comments shall be entertained for approximately 30 minutes upon the discretion of the presiding officer. Please understand that public comment portions of our agenda are not structured as question and answer sessions, but rather they are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. The board may or may not respond to public comments. However, all comments are considered and will be investigated and addressed as appropriate. Please be courteous and mindful of the rights of others when providing comments. Comments may not be abusive, obscene, threatening, or irrelevant. Please understand that students and employees have specific legal and privacy protections. The board is not permitted to respond in public to comments about students or employees. Please be advised that you are commenting at your own risk. Any public comments that are directed at a particular individual or individuals could subject you to legal liability for defamation. So as always, we will alternate between virtual comments and in person. Are there any comments from the public? I don't see any comments from the public, and Ms. Grisales is telling me we have one virtual. Ms.
Correct.
Grisales, please.
Comment is from Susan Shower. I actually hate having to write this, but you just had your lowest scores in education knowledge of the Board of Education. And so now you need to be in your top 3 goals. You need that to be in your top 3 goals. Ask the superintendent the questions about education. You don't need state scores or even district testing. Your administration knows how the students at grade level are doing. Ask. The public never heard a question from the BOE about how the students are doing. How is attendance? These are simple and actually lay person questions. You don't need to be an educator to ask the questions of how our kids are doing.
At this point, I will close the public session. Oh, thank you. Are there any other comments from anyone on the board? Ms. Grisales.
Yes, I wanted to clarify, right, our goal today was to develop goals, right? For me, I value very much the public comment that we receive, all of them, and I think that we are pretty well informed regarding the attendance. We get reports now, right? We are really talking about our scores a lot more, and even though student achievement was the lowest score that we scored ourselves in, I think we had significant discussions about it. I'm very proud that we're in this right now and that we're doing what we need to do in order to push and hold our administration accountable. So I feel like, I don't know about you, that we may have not heard results or answers today, but I think we're building on what we need to expect moving forward.
Mr. Miller?
I think we've heard, we know how we're proceeding with improving our education and the curriculum and all that, and all the tools that we're using. But we really don't know how the students are achieving because we don't have anything to see or to understand. I know the state scores, we won't see them until the fall, right? Is when the testing this spring.
We have access scores that we can and will certainly share by September. We have graduation data that we can share, and we have end of the year iReady scores that we can share. If we get NJSLA by September, we'll report those as well, but if we don't have that, we'll report them when we receive them.
Yeah. So I don't think we really know how our students are doing, other than, if we don't know. When did we ever receive any reports on how our students were achieving? Because there hasn't been the opportunity to know that.
We have gotten iReady data from December or January, so beginning of the school year to, I'm not remembering, but
Yeah,
so
there was a little bit there.
I think part of the issue has been COVID, right? Many of the testing, the data that we rely on doesn't exist. And so as COVID has ended and testing requirements are back in, and we've employed iReady to get more timely data, right? We're not waiting for September to get data from June to drive our program in September, right? I think all of those things will help and as we move forward. Ms. Ruiz.
Thank you, Dr. Singer. I've served on this board for almost 6 years now, and I ask a lot of questions and talk a lot, and I've asked a lot of questions about attendance, SAT programs, SAT performance, graduation rates, number of students, enrollment. For the first few years on this board, I did not receive answers on some of those questions, and instead received instructions that I should bring it up in new business as the full board to vote and task the administration with providing that data. Whenever, at least certainly since Dr. McLaughlin has been our superintendent, whenever I want data, because I do like Robert's Rules of Order, I do think makes for an orderly meeting and a clear record, I often do propose, let's vote on this and task the administration to provide us X. And we never have to do it because the administration says either we've already provided it, check the packet in X, or no need to task it, we will provide it. I've received attendance reports. In fact, one of the reports that I've asked for consistently, not just for our district but statewide, is discipline reports that categorize our students by special education, by race, by gender, by ethnicity, because we know statistically some students are disciplined differently than others. That's a fact. That's not my opinion. That's not, a social study. That's the fact. And speaking for myself, I know how the many students that I personally know in my family, my neighbors, the people that I talk to when I knock on doors, whether or not I'm running for the Board of Education or looking to get support for some other initiative, I know how our students are achieving based on that. I know how our students are achieving based on conversations I have with staff members. I know how our students' achievements based on the very lengthy, very thorough, very intense board packets we receive. I don't know everything, and I want to know more. But I do think we know enough to know that it's got to get better. And it's gotten better in some ways, and thanks to the pandemic, thanks to transition, thanks to a lot of factors, it hasn't gotten better in some ways. And so I'll stop grandstanding now, but I just because, you kind of opened that up. Student achievement is our one job, and it's a one job that I take personally very seriously and that I've seen others take seriously. And I have notebooks and drawers at home of statistics and data that I've been provided regarding several factors of student achievement, including social and emotional health.
Thank you.
Dr. Sainer, if I may.
Yes.
I just want to highlight that we did put student achievement on our goals, and then it was decided after speaking with the administration, Dr. McLaughlin specifically, that will be a part of the district goals, and I'm looking forward to seeing that, because I know that that is important to us and to our community, so we're going to hold you to that.
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm not saying that we didn't have information that gave us an indication that things were, there were good things happening. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that in the past, prior to the pandemic and previous administration, we always had reports on student achievement, which we haven't been able to do because of the pandemic. There's no data. Where the data results would come in, it would be compared against a lot of other factors of all the schools, and there would be any remediation plans of whatever, where they needed to improve. I think that we're in better position to improve because we have better tools now to assess students on a daily basis that they didn't have before. So I think it's moving in the right direction. We just don't have the information or the data to confirm that they are achieving. You know, when you start looking at what those test scores come in, are we at the bottom of the county? Or, you know, it's not that we're comparing against other schools, but you are, to kind of see, are you in the average of the state? That's what I'm talking about. We just don't have that yet.
I do want to just, and I know these things happen over the course of the year, so it's easy to kind of lose track of them. But we've had several presentations this year because we haven't been devoid of data. We started the year with Start Strong data. There was a whole presentation on the Start Strong data that was done at the very beginning of the year. There was a presentation on iReady data. There was data that was provided in regard to SAT prep at the curriculum committee. There's been discipline data that's been provided twice during the school year. There's continual, which occurs in executive, on suspension data. All those things are data, and there's the attendance data. So there has been, there was also a presentation this year on our dropout rate, college admissions, that whole presentation. So even though we didn't have the NJSLA data, and the last time the board had NJSLA data, we did have Dr. Barry Ehrlichson present that in a fairly thorough fashion. And we've also had a presentation this year on access score data. So not NJSLA data because the state didn't do it, but a lot of other data that was presented that, you know, at least gave us indications of how our kids are responding. And we'll continue to present that data. As you might know, the state recently, in a surprising move, decided to keep Start Strong, even though they had indicated they weren't going to. And so we'll have Start Strong data, we'll have NJSLA from last year, we'll have SAT data, we'll have AP score data, and we'll have the, you know, the graduation rate data and the other access data that I mentioned before.
Thank you. That's a lot of data, and I think it's also important that we compare Dover students longitudinally, right? How is that fourth grader in 2020 doing in 8th grade in 2024, right? Have we helped them get back on track? Have we kept them above the average? And so, you know, it'll be nice. Okay, it will be interesting. I don't think Start Strong is nice, but it will be interesting now that there is the opportunity for more testing to be able to do those long range reflections on our district's progress. Mr. Robles?
Yes, I think it and some of the things that we hear from the community speak to when we share, and I know Dr. McLaughlin, as he just said, there's a lot of opportunities where information is being shared, but then it just goes away and it's stored and it's in a file and it's in a presentation, but we don't really get to see it again. I think we would benefit from having a place in our website where we highlight some of the things that we think are important at the district level, where we could see these things real time whenever they're presented to then the next week or the next month to see these are like high level metrics that our people constantly ask for, that they could be visible. And I don't know if that's something that schools usually do or they don't do, but I think if people continue to ask the same questions, why can't we just put it up somewhere that they could just see it one time, all the time, and be there up front and center? I think that's valuable, and I think the community would appreciate just seeing that information.
Okay, seeing no other comments, I would like to remind the public that there are 3 open seats for the Board of Education election in November. Mr. Slam, please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe applications or the nominating petitions are due Monday, the 25th, at 4 or 4:30 to the county clerk. All of that information is available on our website. So I would encourage you to look at it, reach out to a board member if you're not sure what it is that we do other than meet really late into the night. There are benefits. And I hope that you are all leaving. It has been a long meeting, but it was a good meeting. We had some really, really good conversation about our board goals, which will, interlace with our district goals and have a real impact on the students in our community. So I will take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
No, I did not make it. I'm sorry.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Nutting and a second from Ms. Viveros. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you and have a good night. I knew it was Monday. I didn't have the date in my computer. Finally, a meeting that killed my computer.